The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Welcome in. Hello and welcome on this, I don't know what my emotions are on this Monday, because you can kind of take it in a lot of different ways based off of what happened yesterday. In Burrowhead Stadium. All that matters is that the Bengals are 0-2, and we'll break that game. I'm here for the entire week. Kenner's on vacation. Look at that camera moving left and right. And we are going to be zigging and zagging through this entire show. We've got Jacob Tissett, Elliott Rearing, Casey McAllister. Guys, before I get into my monologue, nice to be back in the room with you.
It's good to have you.
It's an honor.
It's refreshing.
It's an honor to be in your presence.
It's been a very, very, very stressful few weeks, but as I text these guys all the time, it's only 10 weeks.
That's right.
The fall is very tough for old Rita Roo, but it's only 10 weeks. It's only 10 weeks. Casey, repping the Joe Burrow jersey.
Yeah, I thought he did really, really well. And we'll get into it more.
Yeah.
I thought what I did before I left on the week helped invoke his energy back. I thought he was Joe Shiesty once again. So
Nice. Yeah, you wore the jersey last Wednesday.
I did.
On your last day on the show, and then we went down to
wore the shades, wore everything.
That's right. Then we went down to the Commonwealth of Kentucky to do the Duke Energy National Gas Rodeo. By the way, I mean, this is the South, man. Just time moves a little bit slower down there. The tea's a little sweeter, little Southern hospitality there in Florence, right. Kentucky. I tell you, I love the South down there. It's great. But let's break into Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We're on 1410 Wing AM. I'm Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner. And I mentioned it at the top of the show. There's a bunch of different ways that you can feel about the way that the Bengals played yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think in all approximation are the best team in the National Football League. After all, they are vying to be the first NFL team to go for a three-peat in the Super Bowl era. And they looked really good against the Ravens last week. And here they are. They squeak out a win on a Harrison Butker 51-yard field goal to beat the Cincinnati Bengals by a point. And based off the way that the Cincinnati Bengals played in week one against the Patriots, who a lot of people thought were going to be the worst team in the NFL, they look okay through 2 weeks. You could take a moral victory in the way that the Cincinnati Bengals played, because we felt incredibly low. I was leaving Paycor Stadium, and it felt like the walls were crumbling. It felt like Joe Burrow was never going to be back to the person that we think he is. It felt like the window had closed, all these things. It felt truly terrible. We sat here in the room all last week and talked, are the Bengals good at all? Not are they going to be good, are they good at all? And what happens looking forward? There are no moral victories in the NFL. That's what I want to get out and say. Because after all, I think it was the great Trent Dilfer and his prophetic lines. You can't lose games in the NFL and still win. The Bengals are sitting 0-2 right now, though a lot of good teams are 0-2. The Baltimore Ravens are the number one team in the AFC last year, starting 0-2. You could feel watching that game like the Bengals got robbed. And maybe they did. You can think there's some grand conspiracy from the NFL to make sure that the Kansas City Chiefs stay on top, that we get the images of Taylor Swift cheering from her suite atop Burrowhead Stadium. You could see this as a hearkening of the Bengals are all the way back. We went toe-to-toe with the two-time champs, took them down the line, probably played better than them for 60 minutes. Just came out on the wrong side. And then you could start looking at the peccadillos of the team, all the little things that went wrong. You know what, I'll go ahead and name them. Natty Sports was talking about how he blamed the loss on the Evan McPherson point after the missed PAT. I mean, if he makes that, then the Kansas City Chiefs hit a PAT and they still up by one. That's just nonsense. You could blame it on the Joe Burrow fumble being, hey, maybe he's not all the way there with his wrist, can't hold on to the ball. You can blame it on the drops. You can blame it on coaching decisions. I certainly scratched my head at a couple of them, notably the PAT that Evan McPherson missed. I felt like we should have gone for 2 there. Notably, I probably don't only rush 3 on that final play of the game, the 4th and 16. Neither here nor there. Here's what I'm choosing to take away from the game yesterday. And I don't know if it necessarily pertains to the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know if it necessarily pertains to anything other than the Bengals played better for 60 minutes and lost, which proved one thing to me, and that is that the Kansas City Chiefs are so hard to beat. And I'm done belittling other quarterbacks in this league for not being able to beat. I'm done belittling Josh Allen. I'm done belittling Lamar Jackson just because they can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Because the Bengals truly played better than them for 60 minutes and lost by a point on a 51-yard field goal by Harrison Butker. Yeah, some crazy things had to happen. Yeah, they had a scoop and score. Yeah, they had a 4th and 16 bailout of defensive pass interference on a rookie that, depending on the angle, either looks like a fine call or the worst call you've ever seen. Also, there probably was 2 different holdings on that same play. Neither here nor there. I'm just done belittling people for not being able to beat that team because they are the best team in the National Football League. And here's where it loops back into the Cincinnati Bengals is we are easily the best equipped to dethrone them. We are the Cincinnati Bengals, easily the team that is, for whatever reason, whether it be Joe Burrow's nerves, then he could go into Arrowhead and not worry about it, which, by the way, he looked heartbroken after that loss. First time that I've seen him look truly heartbroken. Whether it be just the way that the defense is set up, Lou Anarumo, who I thought had a pretty good game plan against the Kansas City Chiefs. He got a couple of turnovers. Shout out Cam Taylor-Britt with one of the best plays I've ever seen. Now, he did get burnt earlier in the game, but that's neither here nor there. For whatever reason it is, the Cincinnati Bengals play their best football against the Kansas City Chiefs and can go toe-to-toe. And they look like they are the only team that can consistently give them a heck of a game, give them all of their money's worth. Now, the Bengals perhaps set up to win in their own division. That remains to be seen. But for whatever it is, when it comes to the best team in football, the team that's vying for the first 3-peats in the NFL's history in the Super Bowl era, the Cincinnati Bengals, I truly believe, are the biggest threat to that. And I truly believe that in Arrowhead's locker room, in Andy Reid's coach's office, in the bars in Kansas City, in the suburbs around Kansas City, they know what I just said is true. They know that if they go and play the Ravens in the AFC Championship game or in the divisional round, wherever it is, they know they'll take care of it because they've done it multiple times. They know that if they go take on Josh Allen, who I think has cemented himself certainly as the second best quarterback in the league, they know that if they play the Bills, they're not worried. But when this plucky little team that can't win in their own division, that looked terrible and can't win the first 2 weeks of the year, Zack Taylor's led Cincinnati Bengals, when they come to town, they're in for a dogfight. And once again, there are no moral victories in the National Football League. But it certainly does feel different today than it did last Monday. It certainly did feel like the team that we imagined going into the season showed out and played yesterday. Starting 0-2, I think in this millennia, there's like a 8% chance to make the postseason when you start 0-2. Something like that. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. And the Bengals start 0-2, the Ravens start 0-2. But we've been in this situation before. And we've climbed out of this situation before. And we've got a pretty favorable schedule in the next few weeks. You just got to take care of business. But I feel like, and once again, I'm doing big butts here, there are no moral victories in the NFL. 0-2 is 0-2. You lost a game that you probably should have won. And we'll get to that. But once again, this team feels like the team that we thought they were. Once again, this team feels like a team that can do what this city has never seen, at least on the gridiron. And that is win a Super Bowl. And that is go deep into the postseason, make another postseason run. And that's what I'm choosing to take away. And we'll get into the game here in a moment. I think I'm good to take it to break, and then we'll come back and talk about the Kansas City Chiefs game. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back on 1410 Wing AM. All right, we are back here on Off the Bench. Cincinnati Bengals 0-2. What's Joe Burrow's record in the first 2 weeks? He's now 1-9. I think he's 1-9 in the first 2 weeks. His only win was against the Minnesota Vikings back in 2021 in overtime, so probably should have lost that one too. Man, wouldn't that be hilarious if you look at it, Joe Burrow, and man, I saw some conflicting reports on how he played. I thought he looked really, really good. I know he probably missed the pass to Yoshi. He probably threw too much of a zinger to Trenton Irwin, the one that hit off his face mask. Get your hands up, Trenton. Probably should have ran that ball too. There's a couple plays that you can pick, but for the most part, I think Joe Burrow once again looked like Joe Burrow. What I really liked from Joe was how good of a squeeze he got on that water bottle. I mean, the water pressure.
He wasn't going to make that mistake again.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to make that mistake again. Yeah, I thought they looked good. I really did. I'm not going to be too angry today. I'm not going to be too upset. I tweeted this last night, but the Patriots took the Seahawks to overtime. The Ravens lose as 9-point favorites to the Raiders at home. I think there's certainly weeks where you could look back and say, yeah, this is disappointing. You lose to the Chiefs, a game you definitely should have won, a game you outplayed them in. And they did. The Bengals outplayed the Chiefs for 5% of that game. 95% of the game, the Bengals won it. And it comes down to, unfortunately, and I don't want to sit here and blame the referees, because I think when you play the Kansas City Chiefs, you're aware of what you're going up against. But it does seem like that game was decided by officiating, and I don't like when games end like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not even just talking about the pass interference call, which everybody admits that probably is a penalty. Yeah. But here's my thing with the pass interference penalty. If it's written in the rule book that if a player is going for the ball, despite the circumstances, if the player is going to the ball because the defender has an equal right to that football as the offensive player, and they reach over and try to get the football, it's written in the rule book that it may be able to be overlooked. Pass interference may be able to overlooked if that occurs. And that, to me, wasn't egregious enough to throw a flag on. Now, that could just be being a Bengals fan or whatever. Another instance is when I think Casey and Tom were talking about it earlier on with the Jamar Chase flag. I think there's a lot of other situations and a lot of other players who go more in depth into a referee's face than what Jamar Chase did. And I know people might be upset with Jamar Chase. They might be upset with the contract stuff, and then you get here in week 2, he has 35 yards, another pretty much slow, not a Jamar Chase-esque game. And then he has a massive flag, which borderline maybe ended the game right there. But nonetheless, it felt like officiating played a bigger role in that game than it should have, and that's when I hate watching football. But throwing that to the side, I thought the Bengals played great. I really did. Because I think you look at last week and you see what happened to the Patriots. I thought the team was lost. Team was lost, and I didn't think we were going to see them again. This week, they showed up, and maybe it is they play the Chiefs and they just show up. Whenever you play the Kansas City Chiefs, you're just the best version of yourself. And they were phenomenal. I don't know what the criticism of Joe Burrow would be from yesterday. I watched that game in its entirety, and never once did I think Joe Burrow doesn't have it. I thought he moved the ball down pretty much on every single drive. How many punts did we have yesterday? Two punts?
Yep.
And I'd argue, you can say whatever you want. Maybe a couple missed throws, but I saw 2 pretty egregious drops by wide receivers. So I don't know. I go back and forth. I look at this with a positive outlook.
It's the Joe stuff, and Craig just put this in the chat, and the criticisms of Joe I think are actually valid. I think he does look a little too jittery in the pocket at times. I think Jolly says he needs to learn how to defeat the blitz. It does seem like when the Chiefs sent the house, it was a pretty clear recipe for stopping Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati Bengals. Here's my take on the officiating, because it's become, I don't know if a meme's the right word. I don't know what it's become this idea, and really it's been an idea for every team on top of the game since it's forever. Is that oh, the NFL has a conspiracy to have the Chiefs win always. That's so dumb. You think if the NFL is conspiring to put a team at the top of the pedestal, they'll put little old Kansas City up there and not the New York Jets, who have been terrible their entire existence, or the Chicago Bears, who have been terrible for 40 years, one of the big markets, or have at least the Giants. I know the Giants they've won some Super Bowls, but have them be at least consistently good. You think if there was a conspiracy, they'd at least, or the Dallas Cowboys, the biggest brand in the sport, hasn't been to an NFC Championship game in 30 years. I'm out on the conspiracy. I do think this, though. I do think that in areas where human bias takes over, and that's what officials have. Like, you can say that I'm unbiased. You can say that everyone has biases. That's okay. That's just us as humans. You think differently, right? And I think that from what the Chiefs have done in winning, that they get the benefit of the doubt on certain calls when it comes to, important parts of the game. And I think that's almost undeniable at this point, because on that same play that we just saw, and I know they called a holding the play prior, and they maybe just didn't want to double up holdings, but I mean, they were murdering my boys on the line. They're murdering my boys on the line. They weren't able to get anything. And they called the DPI. So, I mean, does it suck? Yes. Is it just, it is what I don't think there's a conspiracy. I think it is just what it is. And I don't think there's much you can do about it. I think that if the Cincinnati Bengals ever get to the spot where you win a Super Bowl or something like that, they start giving the benefit of the doubt. Like Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't been to the Super Bowl in 15 years, he still gets the benefit of the doubt on calls because he's earned it. And when you get to a point where you earn it, like, there will be a time, if Joe Burrow is the quarterback that we truly think that he is, that we will start getting calls going our way. Casey?
The one thing that I would urge fans to kind of do this practice is, one, what is Dijon supposed to do there? What is he supposed to do to avoid getting the penalty? And two, if you're a coach, are you sitting there killing the kid? Like, you can't do that. No, you probably tell him to always make a play on the ball, and it just so happened that he was just a hair early. Like, if you look at it in real time, I feel like it's bang, bang, and I'm kind of with Elliot. I feel like you just can't call it there because it feels like a Hail Mary type throw. It's that last play of the game. Let the guys play football. And it wasn't egregious enough to be like, where he was draped all over the guy.
Right.
So in that regard, I feel like the penalty, it's tough. There's so much more about this game that we could focus on. I'm not going to harp on this penalty for too long. But I'm urging fans to seriously think and consider, when you're dogging on Dijon Anthony being out there on the final play of the game, there's a reason why the coaching staff had him out there. They trust him. I feel like he made the right play. He was just, I guess, a hair too early. And a lot like what Zack Taylor said, I know people don't like to hear it, they can get a call their way on the exact same thing. Like, it goes both ways. I just hate that the game was decided on this penalty. The Bengals outplayed the Chiefs all day long, and they just didn't get rewarded for it.
It was the worst passing performance in Patrick Mahomes' career.
Yeah.
It was outside of the one game where he got hurt, I think. He had 150 yards passing. They had one offensive player score a touchdown. They had that was it. They had a defensive touchdown, and they threw it to an offensive line.
Yep. A fluke scoop and score and a bomb to Rashee Rice was really the only consistent or the only big scoring offense they had.
Correct.
The Bengals controlled the game the entire time. I don't want to pile on Dijon Anthony, 7th-round pick. Kudos to him for working his way up the roster and getting to a point where the coaching staff believes in him enough to put him on the field. But where's Jordan Battle, guys?
Yeah, I agree.
Where is he?
So, was that Dijon Anthony's only snap?
No, he had the holding on Travis Kelce earlier in the game.
Okay.
He played a good bit.
Played a little bit.
That was
So
ticky-tack too, though.
It was, but I'm just saying I remember
Well,
that. So he was definitely in there.
That
earlier.
wasn't ticky tack. I hated that.
It wasn't a hold.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. It was. You know what's funny is sometimes you watch a game, and Jolly's in the chat. He's obviously produced a lot of football games. It honestly, so they showed the replay, and then the replay was so evidently not a hold that they quickly rushed it off. I don't know if you noticed that, but they're like, all right, here it is again. and Tony's talking over the replay, and then the play happens. They're like, all right, well, don't show that one again because that was clearly not a hold.
They didn't show the Burrow fumble. I never saw a good look at that Burrow fumble until maybe 3 plays later.
Well,
It was after a couple commercial breaks.
It was a fumble. It was a fumble.
But we didn't see it.
Very, very frustrating as a fan watching that game that it didn't get reviewed immediately. Like they just hurried up and ran the 2-point conversion play.
It was
like,
a
whoa,
yeah.
what?
I feel like that one was a pretty clear fumble.
I think it was a
wasn't.
clear fumble
In
after
real
you
time.
after you see it all, but we didn't see it all.
Yeah,
The fans need to see, though. If the refs realize it's a fumble, then don't spend time reviewing it.
It's not the refs. It's more CBS doing a poor job not showing us the fans.
I'd rather see the 2-point conversion. Like if the Chiefs are lining up to
yeah.
go
I
for a
agree.
2-point
Listen, I agree.
conversion.
I'm in your camp, Elliot, that it was frustrating when, because in my real time, it looked like it wasn't a fumble. Like when I saw it, because like the ball
Same here.
popped out so late.
Real time, I definitely thought he was down.
Right, yeah, the ball, it's just because the way it like moved around as it just popped out so late that it was incredibly frustrating. You're like, whoa. Like, let's pump the brakes. Let's make sure this is a fumble. But yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow walking off the field.
That's the easiest way to tell on a play like that, too.
Right.
If Joe's not putting up a fight, saying he was down, that's the easiest way to tell. He walked right to the sideline and grabbed a bottle of water. That was frustrating.
And he squeezed it with a lot of
Squeezed
pressure.
it well.
Squeezed it with a lot of pressure, which was very important for a lot of people. I didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, but and I don't want to spend a whole lot of
honestly
time.
don't think we even talked about it.
So the whole squeezing the bottle
bottle
conspiracy thing like that, I don't care how he picked up the water bottle or how he squeezed it. But I do think Joe gaslit us a little bit in the press conference when they're talking about it. Listen, man, if you're doing this a lot, you're clearly feeling something there. I don't necessarily need to say that it hurts or like that it's bothering you, but like you're feeling something in there. Listen, as a guy who played a lot of baseball games, if I walked into the dugout after an inning and my pitcher's doing this a lot, like doing like one of these guys, hey man, you okay? And they'll be like, no, I'm good. But like Joe's sitting here and going like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yep. No one just sits around like, this is good. This feels right. Like, Joe, come on. Dude, regardless of the point, the fumble was frustrating. You know, I heard Elliot's takes on the overarching views, and I've got a few questions for you that I'll get into the next segment. But we heard Casey. Jacob, where are you at in just, you know, kind of the mile-high view of yesterday's game? And I know you did Chatterbox Bengals, so I'm sure they heard all your opinions. But
could not be more back in on this team, big picture. And that wasn't the case immediately after the game. I obviously was really encouraged by a lot of the things I saw. I thought Joe looked great, as these guys have said. That was my big thing going into the game. I said all week on here that I didn't need a win. I didn't even need a cover. I just needed to see this offense really compete and play well against a team that we all know is a Super Bowl contender, and they absolutely did. So I'm really relieved with how the team looked yesterday. And then last night after Chatterbox Bengals ended, I went back and watched a lot of the All-22, and the Bengals really did just dominate about 60 minutes of a 60-minute game. I mean, You had 3 red zone drives result in field goals. You lose by 1. You have a fluke scoop and score and a bomb touchdown on what might have been a blown coverage. Taylor Britt certainly looked like he expected a safety over top there. Can't know for sure, but he does a pretty good job running on one-on-one streaks in his career. So I have a hard time believing that there wasn't something that went awry on that play.
He made up for that one as well.
100%. But I really do think the Bengals couldn't have looked much better yesterday in that game, just because if that team that played on Sunday played last week in week 1, they're dominating the Patriots.
Yeah.
And then we're 1-1 and we're not even talking about anything. Tanner Hudson holds onto that ball and we still play poorly in week 1, then we're 1-1, we're not talking about anything. You score 1 touchdown in the red zone instead of a field goal, you're 1-1, you go back to beating the Patriots 2-0. Like, this team's so close to being 2-0 and you're 0-2, which just makes me feel like that it's right there.
Yeah.
You're right there. And this next stretch of games couldn't be more crucial. It's come down to making or breaking the season basically in this next 4 games. You cannot be anything worse than 3-3 coming out of week 6. You have the Commanders on Monday Night Football in town, then you go to Carolina, then you have the Ravens and the Giants. Ravens are obviously going to be a tough game. You can't lose any other ones. You have to take care of the teams at the bottom of the league.
You guys know me well enough to know that I'm not a moral victory guy, But I truly think after last night's game, if you were ever going to lose a game the way they looked, I'm okay losing that one. I'm okay losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City when the referees played. Again, I don't mean to blame the refs the whole time, but they did play a crucial part in that game. I'm not going to lie. They played a crucial part in the game. And I look back and I say, all right, that's the team I wanted to see. I saw them. They fought. And they looked good. Now, I will say the moral victory thing goes away if you lose to the Commanders at home.
100%.
No doubt.
Then everything's lost. If you start 0-3 and 2 of them were to the Patriots at home and the Commanders at home, we're gonna have a different discussion.
One thing I am worried about that Commanders game, not to get too far ahead, but Jaden Daniels hasn't exactly lit the world up passing. Brian Robinson's averaging 7.5 yards per carry. So Bengals have struggled against the run, and if there's a matchup that could be pretty scary, it's that Commanders.
The mobile quarterback thing is not a recipe for success for the Bengals. But yeah, I thought Joe Burrow looked good. I thought Jamar Chase was locked down. If there was ever a complaint I had, that again, back-to-back games where it seemed like Jamar Chase wasn't really involved in the offense, and maybe that was because the Chiefs have a very good defense, and then that's more than fair. I thought our tight ends played great yesterday.
Ooh, I want to get into that.
We can talk about that. We have to go to break here in a second, but I thought the tight ends played great. And I thought the defense was locked down. I really did. I don't know how many field goals he kicked. How many field goals did Bucker have yesterday? Three? Three or four? I thought the defense played as good as you could possibly play against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. When you force three turnovers in that game, and somehow don't win, that's not on the defense. But nonetheless, I come away looking somewhat optimistic heading into this coming week against the Commanders.
Well, I think that we wanted to we had an existential crisis last week. That's what it was. That's truly what it was. You know, I sat here and the entire offseason, there's no way we lose the Patriots. It's the worst team that's ever been put on the NFL field, and they look pretty decently. Shout out to them. They look like just like a solid football team. But we truly walked away from that game thinking, what is this team? What are they? Because they didn't look good. Joe Burrow didn't look good. And for everyone that wanted to sit there and like, what if Joe Burrow's just not a very good quarterback? What if we just – I didn't ever want to go to that room because it's just like, all right, if Joe Burrow's not very good, then just the Bengals, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter anymore. And we keep looping around the no moral victories thing. But we're very much.
I've taken a moral victory.
I am too.
We're 0-2-1. We're 0-2-1.
I don't want to listen.
With a moral victory. With a moral victory.
We're 0-2
and 1.
But the simple fact of the matter is the reason that we are leaving this game too, even though we lost in such dramatic, heartbreaking fashion. Once again, Joe Burrow looked truly heartbroken after the game, and rightfully so. He made a pretty big mistake there towards the end of the game, which led to them losing. And you still have the worries about we're not getting the ball in the end zone. We're kicking too many field goals. Although, who in the NFL is scoring touchdowns right now? Truly, I mean, shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook because they're pushing touchdown bets. And I think they're like through the first 2 weeks, this is the lowest amount of touchdowns we've ever seen in the NFL.
Yeah, the Saints are.
It's actually, the Saints, unless you're betting the Saints. Congrats
but
to
not
anyone.
even, it's just Kamara.
It's
correct.
It's no one. That's not their team.
But the point that I was trying to make is the reason that it feels so differently, even though it's losses, even though we lost in such heartbreaking fashion, is it felt like we were watching the team that we expected to see. It felt like we were watching the Cincinnati Bengals team that can go toe to toe with anybody in the NFL, that has the ceiling to make it to the Super Bowl, that has the ceiling to make it to the AFC Championship, that can win the AFC North. It felt like we were watching that team, even though it came out as a loss, and even though we can consistently say there are no moral victories in the NFL, we are somewhat taking one here, and I'm okay with that because of what I saw with the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday. Casey?
You guys might be taking some moral victories. I probably would have been on the same camp, but there's one glaring issue with this team right now, and it's just health, especially on the D-line. And I just know moving forward, if we cannot get healthy there, we will not win in the AFC North. And at the moment, being 0-2, you're probably not going to have a good time the rest of the way trying to stop other teams from being able to run the ball. The Panthers are probably going to want to run the ball. The Commanders are certainly going to run the ball. We just kind of mentioned that earlier.
The Chiefs
Not that
clearly
I'm-
wanted to run the ball.
That
That was their game
They
plan.
just forgot. It's like they forgot to start running the ball. It was 23-22. They had the ball, and they just forgot to run. It was very crazy that they just all of a sudden forgot that they could run the ball. But that's actually kind of their thing, is that they tend to forget that they can do that. But you cannot go in, and I told this on Dialed In, you cannot go into this next game on Monday with only having 2 guys that are healthy.
Yeah.
You have to go get help. I don't care if those guys end up coming back and they play BJ Hill and Rankins. You got to get more help there. If they got dinged up, you don't want them playing 80% of the time. You want them to get the rest that they need.
And these are soft tissue injuries. These
Yeah.
are hamstring injuries. These are not things you can just rush people back to. That's why T. Higgins is still out. These things linger.
Yeah.
And especially for D linemen, where lower body strength and
Yep.
shooting off and having a good release is so crucial. You need guys that are going to be healthy. And it's not a feasible thing to think we can just run out there and not rotate D linemen for a couple games while we wait on these guys to get healthy. You need a rotation. You need depth. And the Bengals don't have it right now.
Yeah, the Bengals don't have depth on the line. We'll get to more about the Cincinnati Bengals. Starting out the season 0-2 once again. We're back in the foxhole. We'll be back on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers in a moment. And we are back here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mouse filling in for Justin Kenner, who is somewhere on a beach right now.
Sipping something strong. Got a new girl.
Well, I think he changed his latitude. I think he actually changed his latitude. And now he's going to change his attitude. So when he comes back, he's probably sipping some boat drinks. Boys in the band ordered boat drinks.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll do all the Jimmy Buffett songs here today. Yeah, right before break, we were talking about the interior line because I know that's a cause for concern, rightfully so. And it's funny that was a point of emphasis in the offseason, right? You lose DJ Reader, everyone's upset. I did have sort of a revelation about the Bengals just watching other games in the NFL and how much turnaround the Cincinnati Bengals have had over the last few years. Some key pieces from that Super Bowl team, obviously, in places elsewhere. Still feel confident about the Bengals, and that's just how the NFL works. People come, they go. That's just how it works. You gotta use your resources. You gotta draft well to keep the roster replenished. But we did draft a couple of interior linemen. And here we are in week 2. People wanted to see the Bengals, go out and sign another defensive lineman in the offseason. Obviously, they got Sheldon Rankins. But they still wanted more. And here we are in week 2, a couple injuries to that part of the roster. And it's probably the biggest concern with the guys healthy anyways, because we're just not able to stop the run at this very moment. And you should be worried. There's no depth there at all. And even the pieces that are there aren't playing great at the current moment. So can teams continue to run the ball all over us? 2 weeks in, it seems like that's the recipe to beat the Bengals, because that's what the Chiefs were doing early in the game. They obviously went away from it, but Pacheco, I think he found out that he fractured his fibula, which is, I think, the hardest bone in your body to break. So hopefully he gets back soon.
That was a brutal injury.
Yeah,
that one was tough to watch. You got bent on that one.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a really, really, really tough injury. But yeah, teams are going to continue to just try to run the ball down the Bengals' throats. Can the Bengals retaliate? Can Lou Anarumo? Can Duke Tobin get a piece in there to help? Can we not just rely on the guys that we have in-house? Can we get somebody else in here? I don't have any names off the top of my head, but can we get some help just to at least get some breathers for the guys out on the field? That's going to be a major need going forward. That's going to be a major need absolutely going forward. Obviously, I think Miles Murphy on the edge needs to come back in a couple weeks. He's going to be on the PUP list. But the defense did play better, got the turnovers. That was the big key last year when the Bengals, who I think had bottom 4th of the league defense, but the turnover ratio, I think, was top of the league, near top of the league, and that seemed to be a point of emphasis for the Bengals. Man, Cam Taylor-Britt continues. I know he got burnt, but, man, he made some, obviously not even just the interception that kind of caught the world ablaze, but he made some really nice plays throughout that entire game. He's an absolute delight to watch on this team. So here's what I want to talk about the Bengals, because I have a lot of bullet points that I want to keep going forward. Obviously, we talked about our feelings of them. Obviously, we talked about the refs and all these things, and we're going to talk about Jamar Chase in the next segment. I want to talk about something that I've said for a while, and that is, one, if you give Joe Burrow time, he's really tough to stop. And that's why we've had problems in the red zone in years past, is because Joe Burrow, they bring the blitz, they bring the pressure, and the Bengals can't do anything about it. Both touchdowns that the Bengals scored yesterday were when Joe Burrow had time, got the ball to Andre Yoshivas, which shout out to that guy's touchdown to receptions ratio. It's probably why he dropped that pass. I don't know if he dropped it. It was bad, kind of a bad throw, but he did get both hands on the ball late in the game.
Should have been caught.
I agree. It was a bad throw too. I think both things can certainly be true. You give Joe time, this offense will be fine. I'm looking forward to possibly getting Amarius Mims on the line. I'm looking forward to a lot of things, but perhaps the biggest improvement I saw yesterday, I love this tight end room. Eric All played a significant amount of snaps, which I think surprises nearly everyone. The Fairfield Indian native had just a fantastic game. Mike Gesicki had almost 100 yards receiving. Obviously, he had a big drop too. But for the first time in the Joe Burrow era, everyone lamented when C.J. Uzomah left. And then we bring in Hayden Hurst, and he looked pretty good. And everyone lamented when Hayden Hurst left. And we bring in Irv Smith. He didn't look good. But we saw Tanner Hudson and Drew Sample and all these things last year. I think that was the most receiving yards that tight ends have had in the Joe Burrow era. And there they are yesterday. The most receiving yards since Joe Burrow has been the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals from a tight end group. And between Eric All, Mike Gesicki, Drew Sample had the two catches to start the game.
Yeah.
It was so funny when he almost fumbled that ball.
Oh my God.
To start the game, because that's been my bit, is get Drew Sample the ball in open space. But it is funny how you throw the ball to Drew Sample 2 times to begin the game and you don't go 3 and out, and it kind of just seems like the offense clips. Maybe there is some truth to that, is you get the ball to the tight ends early, it just kind of opens up the entire room. But I don't know how you guys feel about the tight end room. This is the most excited I've been for that part of the roster in the Joe Burrow era.
By a wide margin. And I don't necessarily think we have a single balanced tight end. Maybe Eric Hall is going to end up being that.
Yeah.
Certainly looks like he's a dang good blocker, and he's shown a lot in the receiving game, which is phenomenal to have. But Drew Sample, in my opinion, is one of the best blocking tight ends in the entire league. And if you sign a guy who's one of the better receiving tight ends in the entire league, and Mike Gesicki, and you can find a way to play them both on the field a lot of the time, you can create a really good tight end in the aggregate. Yeah, that's exactly what the Bengals are trying to do. I think they're trying to create one of the top tight ends in the league in the aggregate of that room, and I think they've done so. And we still see Tanner McClacken, the Arizona tight end, inactive for these games, and they took him in the draft as well. I would be surprised with how Eric All played if we see much of Tanner Hudson the rest of the year. I think Eric All is clearly the 3rd best tight end on this team, and yesterday drastically the most passing yards to tight ends of Joe Burrow's career, most targets to tight ends in Joe Burrow's career, and I think it's just because they are the wide receiver 3. I think that room is going to be the wide receiver 3, and we're going to use them to attack the middle of the field, and Yoshi's going to be a red zone guy, and Trenton Irwin, who knows what he does when he's on the field. But everyone else on the team seems to be sliding into good roles, and obviously you would love to see Jamar Chase get back to being a dominant number 1, but I think that we're honestly going to have to wait on that until T. Higgins comes back. Without Yoshivas doing anything more than catching 2 touchdowns for 7 yards, and Trenton Irwin not doing a whole lot, 1 bomb to Jermaine Burton, maybe he can establish himself as a real threat. But defenses don't respect a number 2 receiver on the Bengals right now. They doubled Jamar Chase. I can't wait to see the numbers later today when they come out, but they had to have doubled Jamar Chase the majority of them.
I was going to say.
They had a safety over top of him or straight up just 2 corners on him the entire game. It was unbelievable, and that's just strictly because they don't think the other guys can beat them. And if they do, they're fine with that, which I think is a decent way to attack the Bengals right now. Force them to beat you on the ground and with guys not named Jamar Chase, and you'll probably have a little bit of success. Hopefully we can have other guys step up and get better and be more comfortable in that role. But until T. Higgins comes back, I don't think we're going to see the dominant version of Jamar Chase that we're used to. So that's why seeing him go through pregame warmups yesterday, obviously not playing, but looks like he's trending towards hopefully being back on Monday night. That would be such a big get for the Bengals. And then obviously Reed said it, adding Amarius Mims to that right tackle slot hopefully this week would be incredible.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jacob. I'm with you all the way. One thing that I'm wanting to see more of with this offense, because we've seen a lot of the tight ends do really well. I think we'll get to see Jamar Chase and T. Higgins really shine again at some point. I think Gesicki's going to end up being that receiver 3, just by the way things happened yesterday. The one thing that I was disappointed in and wanted to see more of was Chase Brown. Every time he touched the ball, it was for 7-8 yards. And I know we don't run the ball a whole lot, but the whole point of us getting Moss and Chase Brown together is so then they could create more explosive plays, and you hardly even give them a chance to make explosive plays. It's kind of counterintuitive. I like Zach Moss a lot and what he brings. I think he was very consistent and very efficient. It felt like he was always getting the extra few yards.
There was 2 or 3 different runs he very specifically got that extra. He broke off when we needed it too. There was certain points where he chugged a little, fell forward, chugged for an extra yard.
It was the screen pass I
the
noticed.
screen pass was really good too.
But you are right about Chase Brown, and I got the stats in front of me. Zach Moss 12 carries, 34 yards. Chase Brown 4 carries, 31 yards. His longest only 12, so it's not like he had a 29-yard run. And then the other ones were for a yard or 2. Yeah, we got to get Chase Brown the ball more.
He just hits the hole fast.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that the Bengals have quite realized this yet, that he's always going to hit the hole on the line when it's open, right? Like whenever you create a hole in the line, it's not going to get closed in front of the running back. Chase Brown is going to hit that hole. And that's why he's had those huge gains, is because they're able to create holes, but Zach Moss and Joe Mixon just couldn't get that burst of speed through there to get more yards out of it. Chase Brown has done it now, it feels like, for 2 weeks, and we just don't give him more chances. I'm looking forward to maybe seeing that change a little bit. I'm hoping that they saw enough the last 2 weeks to say, okay, we need to give him half and half. And
I don't think it ever will.
You don't think
I don't.
so?
I agree.
I think Zach Moss will, every single game of this year, get more snaps and carries than Chase Brown, and it's because Chase Brown cannot block.
Yep.
Chase Brown absolutely cannot block. He gives you nothing in pass protection, and the Bengals are running the ball less than 20 times a game. So I don't think that the explosive running is necessarily going to put him over Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss gives you much more in the pass game, and that's what the Bengals want to do predominantly on the offensive side of the football. He certainly needs more carries. I'm not saying I disagree with that. He's the better runner. There's no way around it. Zach Moss is good in short yardage. Chase Brown is the guy that can get you that home run play, but I think Zach Moss is going to be the running back 1 the entirety of this year just because of the blocking.
Well, to be fair, let me jump in on this. They had, I think, 22 rushes, something close to that yesterday. 6 of them were from Joe Burrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that. They really only true runs were
only,
probably, I know they had 12 with Zach. I think they had 6 or 4.
They had 4 with Chase.
4 with Chase. And then they probably had 2 real runs from Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Right? 2 sneaks.
Yeah. So it just feels like that ways to be only running the ball 20 times.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, and maybe this is me complaining about Zack Taylor again.
I was gonna open up the door to some things that I disagreed with, but go on.
But when we get inside the 2-yard line, are we opposed to just running the ball?
I think he wants the field goal.
Just run the ball. You're at the 2, and if you don't want to run the ball, QB sneak. And if you don't want to hurt Burrow, get somebody else, have him snap the ball to him, and then he goes up the gut. Or why are we so opposed to running the football when we're inside the 5-yard line? And then the 3rd down play, we're going to do a little pitch 5 yards back, and see if Zach Moss can create something with the 3% of the field he's been given? It's terrible. I know they scored a touchdown on it, but that was the most frustrated I've been all game long. And thank God they scored, because I was begging for him to kick that field goal, because I thought there was a 0% chance that they were going to score the touchdown. Proven wrong, so good on Zack Taylor. It ended up working for him. But it's like I don't understand why they don't run the football more. And maybe it's because they don't line up under center, and I've noticed that more as well. And maybe Burrow just hates doing it so much that it's not even worth the fight.
They were under center yesterday
Yeah,
more than
they
almost
were
ever.
effective.
I was going to
too.
say,
More
they
than I
went
can
under
ever
center
remember.
a lot. So the one drive is the first drive of the game. That's the only time that we had first and goal, I believe, that we didn't score a touchdown. And they get all the way down. It's first and goal from the 6. They go to Zach Moss for 2 yards. It's 2nd and 4 from the 4. And they pass 2 times in a row. Obviously, don't get it. And then they kick the field goal. Every other time, other than that, it was they were out at the 12 or the 15. But we did have too many short field goals in that time. So, listen, I want to open it up to some Zack Taylor criticism here when we come back from break. You are listening and watching, for those watching on YouTube, if you are a listener out on 1410 AM, we invite you to come on in. Just get on YouTube, search Chatterbox Sports, Off the Bench. We're live here every day, 10 to 12. I'll be taking you through this entire week. We'll be right back on 1410 Wing AM. We back, Casey Roo? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. I don't know if our mics were muted or not, but we were talking a little shop going off there in between the break. We're back on Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Reem Mouse filling in for Justin Kinner. Justin, thank you for letting me fill in. I'm glad that I think I'm close to retiring the Kinner hates me.
Okay.
bit.
Yeah.
I think I'm close to retiring it, although he did kick me off the show. So
There really is no way around that.
And he also made me work on my wife's birthday, my wife's anniversary.
Also, your anniversary.
Yeah, I guess it is. I guess, what is the anniversary of? Because the birthday would be the anniversary of my wife's birth. But when it's our anniversary, what are we celebrating there? Yeah. So thanks, Kinner. You know what? I'm back. I'm back on the hatred. All right. So there's a few moments that I want to critique Joe Burrow. I want to hear yours, or not Joe Burrow, but Zack Taylor rather, because in a game where you felt like you played better than the opposing team for 60 minutes and you come out a loser on the other side, something had to give. Obviously, there was the scoop and score, the big turnover that led to 6 points late in the game. But there were a couple other things that I certainly scratched my head at. The first is when Evan McPherson missed the PAT, that felt like a spot to go for 2. No? That felt like a spot. I don't know what your guys' opinion, because the PAT would have made it a 6-point game, would have made it to where 2 field goals would have to be. And I get that. They're saying, hey, our defense is playing well. We're not giving up a whole lot of scores. Let's keep it let's make it a 2 field goal game. But that felt like a spot to go for 2 and go up by 7.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know the difference between 5 and 6, I guess, is my question.
I think what it was is the Bengals at that point were just forcing so many field goals that why not be up 2 field goals? Or
That's exactly it.
Why not be up 2 field goals? So my concern with that is that you can't just bank and hope and pray that the Chiefs won't score a touchdown at some point.
Yeah.
Because they're going to score a touchdown at some point. And granted, it wasn't Mahomes who scored the touchdown, but nonetheless, they found a way to get in the end zone. And that was my concern with this. So, yeah, I absolutely agreed. I thought it was late enough in the game where it made sense. I think there was 2 minutes left in the third quarter. It's basically the fourth quarter. Yeah. And you decide to go up 6 instead of 7. I disagreed with it completely. And it's a Zack Taylor thing. I get it. He maybe wanted to play the smart way, take as many points as you can possibly take against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's fair. But I'd argue that, again, you also are trying to beat Kansas City on the road. You're trying to win this game,
right? And
scared football doesn't win football games against Patrick Mahomes.
When is touchdowns beat the Chiefs, right?
Correct.
Like when you get to the big boy games, you got to be playing to get the touchdowns. You got to be playing to win by touchdowns. So that's when you go for 2. So I completely disagree with that. Another thing that was certainly head scratching was only rushing 3 on that final play.
Yeah, only worked. Like, you flushed him out.
It didn't work.
They got his.
I don't think they flushed. I think they just opened up a hole in the middle of the field.
Yeah, but that's basically what you wanted to do with 3 rush. Like, their plan to rush 3 worked. Exactly what they wanted to happen.
They got no pressure on that play.
Right. But so that's not the plan with rushing 3. It's to try to get him out from being set.
It's trying to limit his time.
Yeah.
Right? It's trying to limit his time. And I think that I don't think he flushed out because anything the Bengals were doing.
Right.
What just happened is he had a wide open hole in the middle of the field. He's going to step up and make a stronger throw. I don't think that was to what the Bengals wanted to do at all. I think that you've got to rush 4 there against Patrick Mahomes.
I don't think that's a good game plan to flush him out, considering how good he is at extending plays and making plays that are extended. So that I can give some I can throw some shade at Lou's way. I love Lou Anarumo, but that was I think a very poor decision there at the end of the ball game. You got to rush 4. Trey has been killing them all day long. Give him a chance to do it again.
I mean, I think it worked. Like the defensive play call worked to perfection.
The idea of it, though, of having him flush out of the pocket and then extending the play, I'm saying that's a bad thing. You should try to contain him and let Trey get to him one more time. That should be the plan.
I don't know. I guess I think that's exactly what you wanted to happen on the 4th down play. You want him to, on 4th and 15, you want him to have to throw a Hail Mary ball to a receiver who's standing completely still, and you have a 7th round pick commit a 60-yard penalty. I feel like I'm not blaming that on the defensive play call.
I actually agree with him, and I'm looking at the pass chart from Mahomes. He had completed 6 passes beyond the line of scrimmage all game. Patrick Mahomes completed 6 passes, 2 of them were at the number, at the line of scrimmage, at the sticks. So I don't think, and again, I know he's Patrick Mahomes, yada yada yada, but he hadn't completed a 15-yard pass all game, it seemingly.
Yeah,
so it was like it was.
That's what he's saying, though. Keep doing what you've been doing instead of changing it.
So why would you change it then? Because that gave him the time to then make a throw downfield. So in a way, I get what you're saying. Like, you did the plan for what you're saying worked. It flushed him out of the pocket, but that's not what the plan should have been. That's where I have critique on the play call there. And again, I'm defending Anthony on that. I don't know what else he's supposed to do. I mean, he makes a play on the ball. I wouldn't blame him on that play whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm not blaming the rookie whatsoever. I completely agree with that. I've said this before when it comes to that final play. I really it was funny being on TikTok. It was funny being on Twitter and seeing all these they're just engagement farming. They're like saying like, "Oh, and here come the Chiefs." Getting the help from the refs, and like they show the angles that doesn't show Anthony hitting the dude's helmet and affecting the play. I think it was a defensive pass interference. I just think that you should send 4 there. I think that Trey had done a really nice job at getting pressure. I know he stepped up in the pocket. I know that you're moving him out and not making sure that he doesn't just sit there at home the entire time. But I would have liked to see 4 there. All in all, it truly just and I started off the show with this and man, we're just going down the line of all these things. I started off the show with this. When you play a team like the Kansas City Chiefs and you feel like you played better than them for 60 minutes, and the Bengals did. And if they didn't play better than them for 60 minutes, it was 59 minutes and 50 seconds. The only bad play, the only head scratcher were the 2 drops and obviously the fumble that led to a 6. I don't know why Joe Burrow went and ran on that play because there wasn't a hole. It wasn't like he's going to get 10 yards. So it was just going to be short. They're going to punt anyways. Joe, just throw it out of play. Just do something other than what you did, please. It just once again shows how tough this team is because there's not a whole lot of plays from Zack Taylor. Wasn't a whole lot of decisions from Zack Taylor where I'm just sitting here going like, what? Why are you doing this? Obviously, the deciding to kick the PAT other than going for 2, head scratcher. I've already brought up the rushing 3. You guys seem to think that it was, and that's fine. You seem that it worked and you got what you wanted. It just was a defensive pass interference is why that didn't work. It just truly shows how hard it is to beat that team. It truly shows that we need to stop perhaps belittling other quarterbacks in the league for not being able to beat that because the Bengals played better than the Kansas City Chiefs for 60 minutes and lost. And there's not a whole lot of, well, if this happened, they just lost. And it was one of those games where you look up at the scoreboard after the game and you're just like, wait, they had more points than us? How is that possible?
When you look at the game, in hindsight, it's Monday morning, you just finished the game, we've seen a new outlook on it. I know Jacob probably more frustrated last night doing Chatterbox Bengals than he might be this morning.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, what was the one thing? I know you can't pick one thing as to why you lose this game, but the one reason why the biggest reason as to why the Bengals lost.
Oh, I can pick one thing.
And I'm going to pick my one thing, and we'll see what you guys think. The one thing that I really think killed it was the Jamar Chase penalty.
Okay.
That was a drive. It was going to be 3rd and 4. You're in great. I know they ended up kicking the field goal anyway, but you're in field goal range. I think the Bengals convert that third down. They march down the field, and obviously a large part of the reason the Bengals lost is because of the clock. You lose to the refs, you lose to the Chiefs, and you lose to the clock at the end of the game there. And I think if the Bengals would have had a 3rd and 4, if Jamar Chase doesn't get the penalty, they convert the third down, they march down the field, and even if they settle for a field goal later on, that's fine. You take 2, 3, 4 minutes off the clock, and that's the deal. That's it. Yep. That was the difference in this game. 1 minute with 53 seconds was the difference in this game. If Jamar Chase doesn't do that, and I don't want to sit up here and bash Jamar Chase. I saw a lot of that on Twitter yesterday. But at the end of the day, you know what happens when you keep talking to the ref. When you're an umpire in baseball, if your manager goes out and he says one thing about a ball or a strike, no matter how civil you're being, you know what's going to happen.
The ref even gave him, let him go, and walked away, and then Jamar went back at him.
Joe, that was the most animated I've seen probably Joe Burrow ever.
On the field.
On the field. He came out and tried his best to hold back Jamar. Like, come on, man. We're trying. It's 3rd and 4.
Right.
And you lose it. And now you have to settle for a 50-whatever yard field goal with Evan McPherson. And God bless that man. Every time he steps up for a 50-yarder, I don't have doubts.
It's just
but it's
35-yarders.
Yeah, it's the extra points. But Jamar Chase has to know better there. I don't even blame Jamar Chase fully for it because it seemed like the ref was more dismissive than I've ever seen a referee be towards him. But you know the penalty. You know the action that's going to take place when you go back that second time and yell in the ref's ear. You know the result, and you went back and you did it anyway.
I would also like Jamar Chase to show one example through the first 2 weeks of a hip drop tackle being penalized because, spoiler alert, you won't find one. They haven't thrown a flag on it yet. They've been dealing it with fines. So he's arguing about a penalty that they don't even call. I don't understand what you're thinking there. Originally, I thought it was a face mask he was arguing because that's obviously
or a horse collar.
Something that's a clear penalty that he thinks they missed. A hip drop tackle, which is a judgment call anyway.
Hip drop tackles. Good job, NFL. Thanks for banning that.
So here's we kicked this can down the line on this show long enough about the Jamar Chase thing, and I'm really glad you brought this up, Elliot, is because it is so clearly evident how frustrated Jamar Chase is. It's so clearly evident that this whole contract negotiation, and also the fact that he hates the Chiefs, and obviously he had the big line as we're the best team, we're the team to beat in the AFC. And you know what? 60 Minutes, he certainly looked like it, but that's neither here nor there. It's so clear that he is so frustrated, and now he's letting it affect how he plays on the field. Now he's letting it affect the way that the team plays instead of keeping it off the field, keeping it in the boardrooms and the negotiation rooms. He's now bringing the play on the field, and that's what was the absolute worst case scenario with this whole thing. That's the reason that so often these players, these agents, these teams, they shelve contract negotiations once the season starts because you don't want to have that affect the way you play on the field, and it clearly is. I don't know what happened. I don't know if something was said. I don't know, but there wasn't a penalty there, Jamar. There wasn't. Nothing was wrong on that tackle. You were frustrated, and you let your emotions get the better of you. And I'm not blaming you because this has been an incredibly frustrating situation, I'm sure, for you. I'm sure it has been for Joe. I'm sure it has been for Zack Taylor, Duke Tobin, your agent. It's been frustrating for us as fans as well. But you can't let it affect the way that you play on the field. You talk the bull junk during the week. You're the one that said, we're the team to beat in the AFC. And you had them down the wire. You had them on the ropes. And you let them off the hook with your penalty. Now, there's big what-ifs there still on that play. You got to go get the first down. You've got to go make the play. But the Bengals were driving, although we've seen them stall out in the red zone before. We can't let this frustrate. And this was everyone's worst-case scenario when these contract negotiations came up, is that it was going to affect the way he plays on the field. And I think, Elliot, you said it. That was the first time that we've seen Joe Burrow animated on the field. That was really one of the first times that I've seen Jamar Chase have an outburst on the field. Obviously, he's been a trash talker his entire run as a college and professional player, and that's what we love about you, Jamar. That's why we want you here for years. That's why we want to make you the highest. That's why his fans want you to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league because we know how special you are. But man, oh man, in the biggest spot of the season so far this year, the frustrations bubbled. And the pot went over. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Do you have a specific moment, or was that your moment?
No, I thought the fumble. I thought the
That's
Joe
what I was gonna
Burrow
say.
fumble. I brought this up before in a game that it felt like once again Joe Burrow was lead. I saw Tom, and I was watching Tom's show earlier, and I think Tom has really good opinions on the Cincinnati Bengals and sports in general. But he said he felt like Joe Burrow was pedestrian yesterday. That wasn't the game that I watched. That wasn't. I mean, certainly he looked really bad in Week 1, but Joe Burrow did not seem pedestrian at all yesterday. I thought he made several amazing plays. He had a couple miscues. Still, I mean, it's well documented how he struggles early in the year, but I thought that was, oh man. In the Joe Burrow era, was that his best Week 1 or Week 2 performance?
It was pretty dang
Yeah.
good.
I'd say, I mean, other than the Vikings game that they actually won, that was top tier.
If we bring into play competition too, then it certainly is. I mean,
100%.
the first 2 week matchups of the last few years haven't been Super Bowl contenders. Obviously, divisional games in those last 2 years, Browns and Steelers, that obviously have sent ripples through the rest of the season in terms of competing for an AFC North championship. But playing against the Super Bowl favorite Chiefs, who just beat the Ravens in Week 1 and really winning the game offensively, and then fumbling it away and a penalty to lose it, it doesn't get much better than that. But my point of the game that changed everything and is why we lost isn't the fumble. It isn't Jamar Chase. It's that last drive for the Bengals. You have the ball with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you kick it back with 2:45. You have to be able to squeeze the clock and end the game.
Yep.
You can't give Mahomes a chance.
Yeah.
Yep.
You only spend a 4-minute drive. You get 1 first down. You throw 3 incomplete passes. There's no explanation to me as to why those were the play calls in that situation. Pointing to the sweep at the goal line, obviously, if we don't score on that 4th down, that's probably a bigger play call discrepancy that I would attack. But this one, I just don't understand how you're not focused on icing the game there. You're trying to move the ball, I guess, by throwing. You're trying to get more points on the board. I understand. You're only up 2. You don't think that's enough, but you don't need more points if the Chiefs don't get the ball back. You have to be able to ice games, and I think it goes back to the Bengals' lack of willingness to hand the ball off. They're just not willing to be a run-first team in any situation.
And I don't get it.
I'm not saying that they need to be a run-first team for games at a time, but they need to be able to take a step back and say, all right, for this drive, in this situation, we're going to run the ball more than we're going to pass. And I mean, Craig put it in the chat earlier in the show. I think it's honestly where I stand with the play calling at this point. Zack Taylor just thinks he's smarter than everyone, I think. He thinks he's an offensive whiz, and he's going to call these plays that no one expects, and the passes are going to be open when everyone thinks you're going to run, yada, yada, yada. And it's just not the case, and it's why we lost yesterday. I think that last drive is why we lost yesterday. And it's all the other stuff that gave the Chiefs points and affected the game earlier. None of it would have mattered if you get 1 more first down on the ground and you're running the clock.
You got to think how little the Chiefs have to march down the field in a minute and a half to get in Butker range. And I don't want to compliment the Butker, but he's a lights out kicker.
He's
I mean, he's like
The NFL, it's not just Butker, by the way. It's everyone.
34 of 36 from 50-yard field goals, I believe.
34, 36, 50-yard field goals for the first 2 weeks. That's more 50-plus-yard field goals than that were made in the entire 2000 season.
It's virtually the same percentage of PGA Tour 6-foot putts.
That's insane. Butker was out there, and I thought they were going to do it. It was a 68-yard field goal, and he stood out there for a good 5 minutes while they called a timeout and they were figuring out what they were going to do.
He would have made it.
He would have made it.
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind, and I agree with Jacob 100%. There's not a bigger fear in this world than giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes with a minute and a half and a timeout. That's infinite. That's infinity time. He can go down. He can do whatever he wants in a minute and a half in a timeout. He could score 2 touchdowns. I fully believe that. And it goes to show that if you're unwilling to run the football, and I unfortunately think the Bengals are unwilling to run the football at this point, then you're going to be in a bad situation when you have to milk the clock. At some point, you got to milk the clock, and they don't know how to do it because they don't run the football.
Listen, when the Cincinnati Bengals, let me let me say something very clear. The Cincinnati Bengals got to where they were in 2021 when they went to the Super Bowl. They got to where they were in 2022 when they got to the AFC Championship because of their ability to throw the ball. That's why they got where they were. I understand the frustrations. I understand that when everything's working great, the run game looks great, and that feeds into the passing game. But this team has been and always will be a pass-first team. I also don't necessarily think that it's the end of the world to ask for a little more balance.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the end of the world. To ask for, hey, we have Chase Brown who's averaging 8 yards a rush. He just got a first down. Let's maybe hand the ball off to him once again. And, man, he fires out of a cannon when he comes in there. But this Cincinnati Bengals team, I don't want them to change. I don't necessarily think I want them to change the way that they call games. I don't know if I want them to, because I know that the ceiling is high when the pass game is where it needs to be. But in the same jest, a little balance probably wouldn't hurt. All right, we'll be right back. You're listening to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers on 1410 Wing AM.
All right, fellas, I'm going to try to do this as quick as I can so we can stay on topic. I know we've been talking a lot about the Cincinnati Bengals, and we're going to continue to do so in their future. So, Pawnee Water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio, uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. I certainly say so. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNI water.com so you can buy this great tasting water. And the Bengals Report is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore, they deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world, from mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions. They help businesses enhance efficiency and productivity. Visit encore.tech, where your path to innovation begins here. I don't think I've ever read that ad read without doing the whole productivity bit, so that was a first.
Productivity.
Yeah. Game Time, the greatest ticketing app out there right now. It's one of the most smoothest, sleek designed apps out there. They help you get the deal that you want. The Game Time pick filters helps you fluff out all the nonsense and just gets you exactly what you're looking for in terms of prices and seats. They've got super deals and things like that pop up all throughout the weeks leading up to your game. And they have tickets selling up until game time. That's basically their thing. You get to see exactly where you're sitting at, and pricing's all up front. It is one of the best apps out there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, fellas?
Game time.
Game
What
time.
is it, fellas?
Game time.
Game time.
What time is it?
Game time.
That's right, fellas. It's game time. Download it today. Redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. All right.
Good job,
Let's go back to the radio.
And we are back here on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farms. I'm Reed Mouse, filling in for Justin Kinner. I'll be here all week. I might not be here Friday. I gotta figure that out, because I do have some important things to take care of on Friday. So I might not be here Friday.
The people might not be able to handle another Elliot and Jacob solo show.
They loved
did
it
it not
last
go
time.
well, though?
Oh, it was phenomenal. We picked more games than have ever been picked in the entire
The
world.
last segment was a record number of games
we picked
picked.
every NFL.
The first 5 segments I thought were pretty good.
They were really good.
6th segment, it came time to pick some games now, and we picked
We picked
all of them.
Yeah, we picked them all.
It's so it sounded like you guys pulled a Rita-Roo and planned 5 segments.
That's right.
That's correct.
That's
that is-
actually how you have to
That's
host
correct.
the show. If you plan 6 segments, you're kind of a square.
Yeah,
It's a
I
6-segment
agree.
show, but like if you want to test how good you are, you should do 5 segments and then just see where the 6th segment takes you. See where the 6th segment takes you. All right, speaking of segments, there's one thing that Elliot broke into. I finished the show. I finished the last segment talking about Jamar Chase, but this is where we are, is Jamar Chase. Obviously, it's so clear the frustrations are bubbling onto the field. I want to get your guys' takes. I want to get your guys' opinions on just where you're at with this whole thing right now, because the thing that we feared has happened now.
Yeah.
The thing that we feared most was that, because I still think that we all believe that Jamar Chase is going to be here long term. I still believe that, although the reports that came out over the weekend
Those didn't help.
that it certainly didn't help. But I truly believe that when push comes to shove, he'll get paid what he's due. He'll get paid to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league. But we so desperately wanted that this whole thing to stay off the field. And it was so evident that the frustrations bubbled up in that play that Elliot brought up that we've talked about a little bit now. Where are you guys at on this whole Jamar Chase thing and now that it has affected the play on the field?
More frustrated than I've ever been. I'm more frustrated now with Jamar Chase than I was at any point in time in the offseason. The whole time I said the holdout and everything like that was a distraction in the offseason, and as soon as kickoff happened, it would be over and we'd get back to playing football, and I thought he'd be fine and dandy. I do think he's fine from a physical perspective. I don't think
100%.
it's affecting him like he's forgetting how to play football or anything like that. I think he's fine in that sense, but mentally it's obviously taking a toll on him. I mean, we've seen more leaks in the first 2 weeks of the NFL season from Jamar or his camp or whoever it is than we saw all throughout the offseason. This is going poorly at the worst time. I wish that the volume would have been turned up before the season instead of during the season. And then obviously with the flag, anyone that says that the contract stuff doesn't have anything to do with that in the game is crazy to me. That's clearly boiling over of an incredibly frustrating offseason for Jamar, and it's affecting the team, and it might have cost the team a win yesterday. And at some point, whether it's Joe, whether it's Zack, or whether it's Jamar's agent, I don't care who it is, someone needs to talk to Jamar and say, hey, you need to focus on playing football.
Right.
We saw Justin Jefferson come out in the media. CeeDee Lamb said virtually the same thing, that they both hoped before the season that Jamar Chase wouldn't let the contract get in the way of his play, wouldn't let get in the way of what comes first, and then that's obviously being a good wide receiver in the league. And we know that Jamar is that. We just need him to play like it. And I don't know how much I can put that on T. Higgins being out. Hopefully a lot. Hopefully when T. Higgins comes back, it's going to take a lot of the pressure off Jamar Chase's shoulders, which is going to let him relax a little bit and not be doubled as much, which is obviously affecting his production. But I think he's also facing a lot of pressure without T out there saying, I need to shoulder this load. We're going to throw the ball more than we were going to run it by about 2 times, and I'm the only guy who's proven that they can be an NFL receiver out here. So I need to go dominate, and maybe he's getting in his head and trying to do too much. I don't know what it is, but at the end of the day, it needs to change quickly, because if not, it's going to derail the season, honestly.
I don't know if it'll. I don't want to go. I don't want to go there yet. I don't want to say that it'll derail this season. But before I let Elliot get to his point, you mentioned that anyone that thinks that the contract negotiations weren't shown on that penalty, like people that were like that penalty has nothing to do with the contract negotiations. I think that it's clear as day that it was. No, do I think that when that play happens, Jamar Chase is in his head, he's like, man, this is why I should be getting paid more. This is bull. No, that's not what happened. But for those married, maybe you're just you forget to take the trash out one time. And the wife, or if you're like maybe when you're a kid and you forget to take the trash, forget to do one little chore, and your parents explode on you, and you're like, whoa, what's this about? Well, it's the 19 things that you did that you haven't been doing or that you've done wrong in the weeks prior. It's not this one specific thing. No, Jamar Chase wasn't sitting there. He gets tackled and he's like, man, he got me pretty good there. I should be getting paid more, and then you get frustrated. No, that's not what happened. It's just clearly the frustrations bubble, and then that play happens, and you just can't control yourself. Elliot?
My word is exhaustive. It's to a point where I'm tired of reading the stories. I'm tired of waking up on Sunday morning reading articles, Saturday night.
That's true.
Reading articles about what went wrong, whose fault it is, who's mad, who's angry, who's pissed off. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of it. Make it end. Please make it end. And I saw the word being thrown around on Twitter, and I haven't heard it during Jamar Chase's career, but the word diva started being thrown out there. And is Jamar Chase a diva? Because you're right now, the way he's acting on the field, and again, I hate to look at that one play, and I'm certainly not going to call him that after 2 weeks this season. but it's what a diva would do.
Oh, Jamar Chase is a diva.
It's when you do that and you come to the sideline and you slam your helmet against the ground. And as of this point, I had not thought of Jamar Chase in that way. He has 10 catches for 97 yards, no touchdowns in 2 weeks. This isn't the Jamar Chase that we know. And I think Reed and Casey and Jacob all were like, you know what? If he comes out 100 yards, 10 catches, a touchdown in one of these games, that's how we'll know we're back. We haven't been remotely close to that. We haven't seen it at all. And nonetheless, I do think that Jacob's right. I think it's going to play a factor down the line here. I'm not going to say that he's not going to have 1,000 yards. I still think he figures out a way to be productive this season. But I think he's pissed off. This is something the Bengals started. And you can get mad at Jamar Chase for all this. And I get the frustration with Jamar Chase. The Bengals started it. They did it. It's been reported that they did it. It's been confirmed by Jamar Chase that they did it. If you're not confident in your ability to get a deal done long-term with Jamar Chase, don't throw it on the table when there's 2 years left of the deal, of the current deal. Don't. And they did it, and now you have to pay the price. So I don't know if Jamar Chase is going to be the Jamar Chase we saw last year, the past couple of years. Right now we're dealing with a different version of Jamar Chase, and that sucks. I'm hoping they figure it out. I know they won't sign it this current season. I'm hoping Jamar Chase can power through it this year, and we can get it done in the offseason. But it makes you wonder about, does he want to get it done during the offseason? How long does he want it to be here now? Because he's going to be dealing with the same people. I'm not going to sit here and bash Jamar Chase today after week 2. But a couple more games like this against the Giants and the Commanders, who don't have very good defenses, then we're going to have, again, a different conversation will be had. So I'm exhausted. That's my word.
I said this weeks ago. I think I said this when the last time I hosted, and it was, I think, the day after Jamar Chase had been reported back to practice, and I said, well, duh, he's going to play, and then it took another step further because he just showed up, Zack Taylor, the next day. But I said something that day that I still think rings true. For the first time, we are seeing the fans kind of turn against Chase because Chase had been such a fun. He'd been so amazing that he probably is more beloved than Joe, and not in like. No one disliked Jamar Chase. There were some people that were truthers, I guess, on Joe Burrow, but no one would say a thing about Jamar Chase. And now, for the first time ever, the fans are starting to get a little frustrated. They're starting to get a little, as you said, exhausted about the whole Jamar Chase thing. And I said this last time I hosted, is that we will forget all that. It will all wash off like dirt in a shower this first time that we see Jamar Chase gritty in the back of the end zone. And I still think that's true. We just haven't seen it yet. The first time that Jamar Chase goes off for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns or a touchdown or whatever and the Bengals win, I think that goes away. I truly think that goes away, but maybe I'm wrong. I
want to see him have fun. There's no fun out there right now. Not with Jamar Chase, at least. I don't see smiles. I don't see dances. I don't see anything. The lasting memory I have of Jamar Chase this season is him slamming his helmet against the ground. That's not what I want. And I know we're 0-2. Bengals are 0-2 to start this season, so frustration is everywhere. But I need to see the Bengals have fun again. Be the team you were 2 years ago. Please. Come back to me. And it starts on Monday night against the Commanders.
In my opinion, I feel like not much has changed with Jamar Chase from the last few years to this year. It's just we're not winning yet. Jamar Chase has always been a diva. He was a diva at LSU. He's been a diva in the league. He talks more crap than almost any receiver in the entire league. He seeks out interviews to put down other teams and put the Bengals up. And I love that. I love a diva wide receiver. I think most of the good ones, if not all of the good ones, are divas. I mean, let's look at the best receivers of all time. The only one on that list that's not a certified diva is Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
T.O., Randy Moss, Ocho Cinco, one of the Bengals greats. All absolutely, no doubt about it, divas in the media and everything like that. And Jamar Chase is no different. I mean, everyone points to Justin Jefferson and says, well, he's not a diva. Well, let's look back at when had his contract was up. Do you remember the leaks about him at New York cafes, meeting with the Jets and flying across the country to look at other teams? Every wide receiver is a diva when they're not getting what they want. And right now, Jamar Chase, the diva, is just turning from the Bengals are competing for Super Bowls and looking like a dominant team, and he's talking about how they're the team to beat and the best team in the league, and everyone has to run through them, and now you're losing, and he's a little bit upset, and the conversation is twisted a little bit. It's still the same player. It's still the same mindset. I just think he's being a little pessimistic right now, and maybe he wouldn't be if he had a contract. That's definitely a way to think about it. If you're 0-2 and you have $40 million in your pocket, it's a little bit easier to swallow than 0-2 with 4 or whatever his current base salary is. I really am not worried about Jamar Chase long term. Obviously, that Schefter article changes some things contract-wise, but long term in terms of this season, I really do think it's as simple as T. Higgins comes back and he's going to be normal.
Okay.
Yeah, it is interesting. We had a game where the offense looked about as worst as I've seen, and we had a game where yesterday it looked pretty dang good. Didn't get in the end zone as much as I think we'd all like. You scored 6 times. You only get 25 points. Would have liked to see at least one more get into the end zone. Probably the first drive was the closest they got down to the 2-yard line and had to kick a 20-yarder. But that is without Jamar Chase playing at Jamar Chase levels, and that's without T. Higgins playing at all. So the one thing that can't happen, the one thing that absolutely cannot happen. So we've seen them completely lay an egg in week 1, as they've done most of the time that Zack Taylor's been the head coach and most of the time that Joe Burrow's been here. And if you go back and look at Joe Burrow in college, actually the numbers are pretty similar back in college, that he starts slow. You play those FCS schools in the year that LSU beat, 10 ranked teams. First 2 weeks really didn't jump off the charts, at least early in the game. So it just is that team. But the one thing you can't do is just lay another egg here in the next 3 weeks, because we looked at the first 6 games and kind of circled it as 4-2. I think now we're looking more at a 3-3. But you just got to take it game by game, and you got to get back wins, because there's a lot of teams that, like, no one's separated themselves besides the Chiefs. In all sincerity, no one's come out and the New Orleans Saints have outscored teams 91-29, but the Detroit Lions, who everyone said looked really good, they lost a game. 49ers, they lost a game. Ravens are 0-2. So, other than the Bills and the Chiefs, maybe this thing's still open. And in the AFC North, it's still right there. Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0. The Browns are 1-1. Us and the Ravens are 0-2. So you just got to go back. You got to get back to the drawing board. I think Sean Connor put it in the chat earlier. I think the Bengals are over touchdown favorites against the Commanders next Monday. Go back, win that game. Win the game after that. Get back to what you've seen and get back to the Cincinnati Bengals that we've seen for the past few years when Joe Burrow's healthy. And that team's out there. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have Elliot's headlines.
Whoa, we're going to lead off the show.
There you go.
Lead off the 6th segment with headlines.
Headlines. We love leading off. That's his three favorite things, concluding the show.
He hates 2 of the 3 things in that stinger at this point.
Ooh.
Do I?
We don't lead the show off, so you obviously don't like that, and you hate
you're
David
right.
Bell.
You're right. Well, I don't hate David Bell. I'm neutral.
Neutral, David.
I don't cheer for him.
Is that new?
I think that is new.
That's new?
I think
nice.
that's new.
Nice. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back here on 1410 Wing AM. And we are back on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Reed Mounts, Jacob Tissett, Elliot Rearing, Casey McAllister be here all week. It was a heartbreaker yesterday in Cincinnati, but that wasn't the only NFL game. That wasn't the only professional sport that was played yesterday.
That's correct. Shout out to the Reds. We'll get to them in a minute. Before I go to it, and I will go to the headlines here in a second, the Bengals, again, 0-2 to start this season. Do you think there's a world where this changes? Or is this the Bengals now? We will start 0-2 every season. When we look at the preseason, everybody's healthy, mostly. We have a normal preseason, normal offseason. We go into week 1. Are we going to be confident going forward? No. Are you guys?
So my question
are
is:
you guys going to be confident? Because I'm gonna answer honestly here. I do think that there is a common denominator with these starts. I do. And I'm not going to say fire that guy yet. I won't do it yet.
But here's the thing.
Might at the end of the year.
Well, here's the thing. It hasn't hurt us yet.
Right.
It hasn't hurt us yet. That's true.
When it does hurt us for the first time, it's going to get really loud.
It'll be very, very different. It has, because you can say, well, it hurt us in 2022 because they would have got home field advantage if they won one of those first 2 games. Certainly fair, but you're still playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe you win that game if it's at Paycor Stadium. That's the only world in which it's because so far all these slow starts, we've gotten to the Super Bowl, we've gotten to the AFC Championship game, and I wouldn't have wanted to make the postseason anyways last year.
Right.
We would have made the postseason if you won one of the first 2 games last year, but we have Jake Browning playing. Who would have we even played? Who would have been the final wild? Would have had Jake Browning playing the
Bills?
Would have been playing the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. I don't know. I mean, we won there before.
I think Amarius Mims looks pretty good.
Listen, I'm just saying. At some point, it gets exhaustive.
You're not wrong.
They showed
It's frustrating.
they showed the
It's
graphic
frustrating.
yesterday of because it's Burrow, so they put Burrow Mahomes in this month.
First 2
Mahomes
weeks.
is beautiful, whatever, all those beautiful stats, and Burrow has 10 interceptions, a 1-10 record, and yada yada yada.
Mahomes is like 46-2 or something.
Yeah, it's just absurd. It's just all I'm saying is that eventually serious Super Bowl contenders don't have the mantra of starting slow every
I
single
don't think.
year.
Well,
I don't think
it's
think
a mantra.
well,
but
I think it is. I think it is. I think when you think of I think
they have it in the locker
I
room?
think it is. I think it might be
0-2.
because it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in years. They start slow. That's what you expect. I don't think you should be expecting to start slow. And I know we had last year fluke. Throw that one away. Fine. But if it happens again next year, there's going to be a louder discussion about this.
I don't listen. I think Jacob brought it up, and I said it earlier. If you ask me if I'm sitting right here and you say, Reed, I'll make a trade. You can win. You can go 4-0 in September every year, but you're not playing your best football at the end of the season. Or you could say, hey, Reed, the Bengals will be playing their best football at the end of the year, but you got to start 0-2. I'll take that every time.
Yep.
Every single time. And you're not wrong. It is frustrating because we sit here every year. We get in here and they're like, this is an easy one. We got the Patriots up week 1. Let's get it done. Or, hey, what was the year we got the bad? We got Mitchell Trubisky's Steelers and Cooper Rush's Cowboys. Let's get those 2 win. This first time that it truly hurts. And I know I brought up one way in which it hurt is you might have gotten all the home games at Paycor Stadium in 2022. So the AFC Championship game would have been at Paycor Stadium. But also, I could also say that maybe we don't beat the Bills.
Yeah.
If it's not snowing up there in Buffalo. Like if they play at Paycor Stadium, that game might look very different.
It is amazing that the Bills built a team that is built perfectly for a dome.
Yeah.
And they play in Buffalo.
Yeah, and it's Jackson Carman. I don't think is doing really good if the defensive linemen aren't on skates the entire game. So, yeah, it's the butterfly effect. But the first time that we truly see it impact to where we don't win the AFC North because of the 0-2 start, or we don't make the postseason because of an 0-2 start, yes, then things will need to change. But until that happens, it's not the end of the world for me.
Okay, that's fair. I was just asking. I was just asking. I'll skip. I typed all the Bengals things, but we went over all that. So, anything notable? I mentioned that that was the second worst passing game in Mahomes' career. The other game was an injury game. So, nonetheless, around the league, the Chargers, they humiliate the Panthers 26-3. Dobbins 131 yards and a touchdown.
Good for him, man.
Panthers are the worst team ever.
No,
Ever?
those Browns teams were so bad.
Pan-
The Browns.
Who do the
probably-
Panthers beat?
You don't think the Panthers are going to win a game this year?
Who do they beat?
They will win a game.
They'll win.
This
you don't
week?
think so?
No, I think they'll win.
I think
they'll win 2.
I think they'll win 2 or 3.
I think they might win this week. Who do they put the Raiders this week?
They do play the
maybe
Raiders.
maybe they sneak by the Raiders.
By the
they
way,
got a game after the Raiders that might be able to sneak out.
Who's that?
Bengals.
You know what? I want to put on a takeout.
I knew it, and I still fell for it.
You know what I want to put a takeout there for? Is Jim do we not respect Jim Harbaugh enough?
Do people not remember what he did in San Francisco?
Like, do we not respect him enough?
Yeah.
Like, because he doesn't have the reason we don't is because he doesn't have like all the championships, right? He doesn't have Nick Saban champion. He's only got the one.
Well, asterisk.
He's only got the one. But I mean, he took over the Stanford, who was terrible, and right away they were really good. One of the best teams in the nation. Took over the 49ers, who were terrible leading up, and took them to back-to-back NFC Championship games. Went to one Super Bowl, correct? No?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he takes over Michigan, who was in a terrible spot, and made them perennial contenders. And here they are, 2-0.
Yeah.
And they haven't played anybody that tough yet.
The
But man, oh
49ers
man, Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert just seems like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, the 49ers were 6-10 in 2010. 6-10. He took over in 2011. They made very little changes. Alex Smith was still the quarterback.
Yep.
They went 13-3 in what was supposed to be a rebuilding year. If you look at the rosters in 2010, 2011 for the Niners, it's not that far off of what the Chargers have right now.
I think
You thought they didn't have weapons. They have a quarterback that's talented. I don't think writing the Chargers out of the AFC playoffs is something you can do right now.
No, absolutely not. I will say Herbert hasn't looked great.
But he hasn't been
He hasn't-
asked
I
to.
know, but just saying, just throwing that in there. The Saints, this was a big one. They upset the Cowboys 44-19. They have scored now 91 points in their first 2 games. 91 points. As somebody who bet the Cowboys, and I just kept saying, just get one stop. One stop.
Didn't.
It's just about this one stop. They didn't get one stop ever. I think literally they punted one time, and that was when the game was 44-0. So I don't know what the Saints are. You guys lied to me about the Falcons.
Yep, big time.
Falcons winning the division. They got some great defense. Kirk Cousins. Oh, Falcons. That team stinks.
I do think the defense
and you
is
have,
still good.
And you legitimately have 2 really, really good teams in the Buccaneers. We'll get to them in a second.
Whoa.
The Buccaneers. Oh, yeah.
Two really good teams?
2 really good teams in the Buccaneers and the you say the Saints have scored 91 points.
That's cute.
91. You're going to say both are flukes?
100%. And I'll say it 15 more times
Come
if I have
on.
to. Derek Carr's not a good NFL quarterback.
I don't know. The throws he made yesterday
Clint
looked good.
Kubiak is a god.
They look
People are
good.
not saying his name enough when you talk about the Saints. Clint
look-
Kubiak is a god.
They looked good yesterday. Buccaneers, they went into Detroit, came away with the win. Baker only completed 12 passes. That's all they needed to beat the Lions. I don't think Jared Goff has looked relatively great this season.
2 really bad picks.
But one player on that team has looked really, really good, and that's J-Mo. That's your boy.
That's my guy.
J-Mo's looked absolutely elite this season. Now, I don't know what happened to St. Brown towards the end. I know there was an injury.
Yep.
I don't know if he's fine today, but I know he went down with an injury. Packers, they win 16-10 without Jordan Love. Anthony Richardson threw 3 interceptions, completed 50% of his passes. Terrible.
Youngest quarterback in the league? No. Isn't he really young? Isn't he? I think he's.
He is. Yeah, he's young.
I think he's the youngest quarterback in the league.
Looked really, really bad yesterday. There was no game plan. The fact that they couldn't figure out that win, kind of crazy to me. But nonetheless, Packers.
Fun nugget about that game. It was 3rd and I believe 10 or 12, and Malik Willis was lined up in a shotgun, and he caught the ball, and he just ran 3 yards, ran out of bounds, and the Packers punted. Came to the sideline, and their head coach, Matt LaFleur, asked, Malik, why didn't you throw the ball? It's 3rd down. We need a first down.
I did see this.
He said the center threw up on the ball before the play, so he didn't want to throw it to one of the receivers to be nice.
I did see that.
The clip is insane. Josh Myers is set to snap the ball. He literally just pukes right on the ball, snaps it to Malik Willis. Malik Willis catches it, looks at it, and just runs out of bounds.
That's so funny. I will admit this about the first few primetime games. I don't have a good read on many teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Because I saw the Packers and the Eagles play, and I thought very highly of the Packers and thought decently lowly of the Eagles. I still think they'll be like a playoff team and everything like that, or around there. I watched them both play, and I was like, I don't think either one of these teams are very good.
Yep.
Like, I don't think either one of these teams. And then I watched the Lions and the Rams play, and I'm like, both these teams are great. And I just got no feel. Got no feel right now.
Moving on, we have the Browns beating the Jaguars 18-13. Trevor Lawrence, 14 of 30 for 220 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, if that's something that you count.
Do you remember
You did your apologies about MLB player about the Reds last year. I'm teetering. I'm gonna let the season play out a little.
You got to
more.
give yourself a chance.
I'm gonna let it play out a little more, but there are some quarterbacks that I've had I've been steadfast in my opinions, and I'm starting to come back on those, and Trevor Lawrence is certainly one of them.
Do you remember your 2023 Thanksgiving? I have some great memories with my family.
I
Wonderful
do.
food.
I do remember that actually.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Jake Browning broke him.
Yeah.
People forget that Jake Browning broke Trevor Lawrence.
He did. He who shall not be named. He was 22 for 34, 186 yards, no touchdowns, a pick. But for what it's worth, I guess he was somewhat competent. But nonetheless, that guy stinks. So moving on past him, as I move over here, by the way, headlines is going to last for three little words here. The Jets, they win by a touchdown in Tennessee. Not a lot to talk about there, except Brian Callahan hates his quarterback. Hates him. I've never seen a head coach, I listened to the post game, And he's like, yeah, he knows that's stupid, and I told him it was stupid. And the cameras captured it perfectly.
What are you
because
supposed to do if
It was
you're
such a
Brian
stupid
Callahan,
play.
I need Brian I know.
Bench? Talk
For
about
what?
Talk about who's on the bench there.
They traded
Use
Malik
me.
Willis to the Packers.
Let's see. Titans
They
depth.
could go re-sign Tannehill back.
So here's where I'm
They
at.
should.
Here's where I'm at with Brian Callahan. Someone.
Oh, do you know who it is?
Who is it?
Mason Rudolph. Bring him in, baby. There is no third quarterback on the depth chart. So it's him or Mason.
So here's someone in Nashville, whether it be one of the music agencies, they need to get their PR team in with Brian Callahan and go, hey, I know you mean it. I know you want to say it. I know you hate Will Levis right now. But maybe the first game that you ever coach in the post-game conference, don't say we would have won that game if we just punted it on first down in the second half. Maybe just don't say that, because that doesn't exactly breathe confidence into the locker room. That doesn't exactly breathe confidence into what you're hoping is your franchise quarterback, although it's quickly becoming that he's not your franchise quarterback. But I saw someone tweet out, I think Brian Callahan is going to bare-knuckle brawl Will Levis next game.
Wouldn't be shocked.
Oh, my goodness.
Would be a fun visual. The Vikings, they beat the 49ers, dominated that game from start to finish, 23-17. Jefferson did leave with an injury. I don't know what the status of that injury is yet this morning. But nonetheless, it looks like we've got maybe a new emerging quarterback in the NFC.
7th-year bump.
I'll apologize to him if he finishes this year. By the way, won't talk about fantasy football because nobody cares about your fantasy team. Just added a third quarterback to my roster. Welcome to the team, Sam Darnold.
So
I was on Darnold. I was on him.
While I just disclosed that I'm ready to admit that I might have been wrong about a lot of things in the NFL, about a lot of quarterbacks. I said, if you recall this, I said this quite a lot, that J.J. McCarthy, if he gets a chance to play in Minnesota, will probably look pretty good, because that is one of the best situations that I've ever seen for a young quarterback. You've got Kevin O'Connell, who I think is the most underappreciated coach in the NFL. I think that when it comes to offensive minds, he's certain. Like, we always talk about Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan because they have the postseason accolades. I think you can put Kevin O'Connell up there like that. Put him in there right now, because I think he's as good as it gets offensively. I think you got a good offensive line. I think you got Justin Jefferson. I think you got a lot of good pieces. I think that's a really good situation, and it's proven that Sam Darnold can even make it work.
I'm going to jump to a different one, and I shouldn't do this, but speaking of good situations, the Chicago Bears, they lose 19-13, and your boy, I saw the Kuda tweet. I don't know if I get the Jay Kuda. Hopefully I can. Oh, I got it. This season, stat line, Caleb Williams is on pace for 0 passing touchdowns, 17 interceptions, 0 rushing touchdowns, 8.5 fumbles, and 76.5 sacks. That's your guy. Good situation.
Yeah, and the Reds were on pace for 162-0 like 2 years ago.
I do like.
That's a serious journalist, and I have to read what he says.
I do.
As he draws it in red crayon.
Caleb Williams. I tend, and sometimes it bites in the tail. I tend to point towards experts, right? I tend to, like, hey, if I go to the doctor's office and the doctor says I have this, and this wrong, I'm gonna be like, all right, well, what do I need to get better? And he'll give me a prescription, or he'll say do this, and this, and I'm like, all right, you're the expert, you know what you're talking about. When it came to that, when all the experts, when all the NFL scouts, when everyone that watches a lot of college tape tells me, hey, this is one of, if not the best prospect we have seen since Andrew Luck, I'll tend to go, hey, that sounds like a pretty good guy. Sounds like a pretty good prospect. Not looking good. Just doesn't look good. I do like how people move the goalpost back on him, because for a while there is, oh, he's going to be a bust. Oh, it's going to be a bust. And then like when we got closer to the season, people that want Caleb Williams to not be good be like, tell you what, it's the best system I think of rookie quarterbacks ever gotten. It's the best situation I think a rookie quarterback's ever gotten. It's like, oh, playing for the Chicago Bears, who have never been good at offense. That's the situation that you want to go into. It's a good situation. Don't get me wrong. They did a really good job at creating an area for Caleb Williams to succeed. He just hasn't done it yet. But I just liked how they moved the goalpost back. I think Caleb Williams will be fine. He just doesn't look good right now. I'm probably wrong about C.J. Stroud.
38 dropbacks last night for Caleb Williams. 38 dropbacks. Do you want to guess how many times he was pressured on those 38 dropbacks?
25.
How about 37 times?
Really?
And he has sacked 7, hit 11. I don't care how good you are at quarterback. If you're getting hit that consistently, if you're off platform that consistently, you're not going to win. And you're playing a Texans team that's supposedly at the top of the league. I think he took a big step from week 1 to week 2. Still didn't look great, but I think he's going to be just fine.
So also,
He did lead him to a comeback last week. You have to give him a little bit of credit.
they're one. At the end of the day, like we talk about like how things look and everything like that. They are 1-1. Like
Yeah.
they are 1-1. The thing about Caleb Williams too is I feel like the Bears did almost everything right. I feel like they almost did everything right. I just don't know how you keep Eberflus. I just don't know how you do that.
I don't get it.
It's like you got a chance to set the whole thing, reset the whole thing, and I just don't know how you keep a defensive-minded head coach when more often than not that hasn't been the way to succeed. It's working in Texas. It's the Ohio State hater in me. This is me being vulnerable. The Ohio State hater in me. I often said no one gets more credit for getting blown out in the postseason than the Houston Texans did last year. Man makes some really nice throws. C.J. Stroud looks damn good. He looks damn good. He's that Texans team, as much as I don't want to believe in him because I am an Ohio State hater, he looks damn good.
They're scary. And that's it for the radio. So I'll read some more of these for the YouTube show. Thank you very much, ESPN 1410 Wing AM.
One more headline update.
One more
Okay,
headline.
sorry.
Tyler Huntley signed by the Dolphins.
That's right.
Tua Tagovailoa concussion, obviously probably not coming back this year. There you go.
He did say he's not retiring, though. He
That-
did come out and say he will not
We
retire.
knew that. We knew that.
I
There's a
didn't know
0%
that.
chance
I
he's going
didn't.
to retire.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, come on.
Why not take the money? The money's guaranteed. It's yours. Take the money.
You're thinking of it from us who watch football on the couch, not a competitor who has worked his whole life to get to the
Sure,
NFL
but
and finally has an opportunity.
I guess.
He was never going to retire. But Tyler Huntley's going to be their starting quarterback the rest of the year. Pro Bowl,
crazy.
Tyler Huntley. So,
Do you think that they'll create special protocol for Tua?
I would be shocked if they didn't.
Because they like the halo things that they wear in practice. By the way, if we have technology, if we have technology that is better for these players, enough so that they're going to use it in practice, I don't care if it's ugly or not. Let's use it in a game.
Boo.
Let's use it in a game.
Boo.
That's to quote Stephen A. Smith, that's asinine, ass 10, ass 11. I don't care how ugly it is. If we have technology that protects these players in a sport that we are worried about, we know that these are the modern day gladiators going against one another and damaging their bodies so much that they can have permanent brain damage. Let's do everything in our possibility to make sure that it's better for them. Let them wear the halos in the games, please.
The only thing that matters on the field is looking cool. That's why players don't even wear the Visus. The Visus is so much more protective than the Speed Flex, and players don't even wear that because the Speed Flex looks cooler. You got to look cool.
Okay, Jacob. ESPN 1410 Wing AM, we thank you very much for listening to the radio portion. We're going to continue, roll on here on YouTube, Chatterbox Sports. Thank you very much. Have a great Monday. And we're back.
I'm back.
We're back.
I don't know Casey, which one is
That
it?
one is live. That one is
Oh,
cute.
that one's the live one today?
The one with the graphics on it?
That makes sense. I was looking at this one today.
Did you think
They switch every once in a while.
Well, no, what happened is it started out on this
It
one.
did,
and then the computers, I think the computer went down earlier, and then when it came back, it flipped around.
Keeping us on our toes.
It did. Well, so if you didn't think that, if you didn't realize that they flipped, did you think Casey was just off his game today? Like when you were talking, the camera was on me?
I didn't know what was going on. Because I thought it was over there at one point. That's how, and maybe when it switched back, I didn't even pay attention, but whatever. Moving on. Thank God I didn't notice it because I would have been distracted and I would have made a big deal about it.
I think
Nonetheless,
there's only 12 minutes left because you're going to now.
We're gonna take this as long as it needs.
Okay.
Seahawks. This is gonna be just like a box lunch for everybody. Seahawks. They hang on in overtime to beat the Patriots 23-20. It makes me feel really, really good that game went to overtime. Makes me feel really, really good that the Patriots could have won that football game. And I was cheering for them too. I bet on the Seahawks. I needed them to win. But I was like, please, Patriots, be 2-0 to make me feel great. Make me feel fantastic.
Yeah.
But nonetheless.
They look like, they look like the Patriot way is still somehow, like there's still some precipitation there from the Bill, but like they just like still know how to play football, I guess.
Yeah.
Like they still, like I don't think they're talented by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that they might scheme their way to a couple wins this year.
It's the Robert Kraft way.
It's a good shout out to the Patriots. You want to talk about things making me feel better as a Bengals fan? The lack of scoring actually makes me feel better. In all sincerity, after week 1, the fact that no one's putting up points other than the Saints
They scored all the
and
points.
I guess the Bills. The Bills have been pretty good through 2 weeks, but it makes me feel better.
Commanders, they kicked 7 field goals in their 21-18 win over the Giants. 7 field goals.
It's the first time in NFL history a team has scored 3 touchdowns, not allowed a touchdown, and lost.
Did they punt in that game? I saw the drive report. It was like field goal, field goal, field goal, kneel right before the half, field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal.
Yeah.
Insane.
You know why the Giants didn't kick any extra points?
I saw this too.
Graham Gano went up to the coach basically before the game and was like, I can't kick today.
What?
Sorry, can't kick today.
Can't kick, and they didn't have a backup.
So they don't have a backup kicker because Graham Gano practiced all week. He's like, I can't kick today. So they scored 3 touchdowns, went for 2 every time, missed all 3 2-point conversions, and lost 21-18.
The Commanders scored in every drive they had.
Yeah.
Every field goal, except for I think they kneeled down before half. That was the only time they
scored.
did.
They scored in every drive. That's pretty impressive. Man, Commanders versus Bengals, the 2 teams that can't score in the red zone bowl.
I'm very scared of that game.
Very scared.
I'm very, very scared of that game, and you can't start 0-3. Moving on.
Oh, 0-3, it's down.
Raiders
I
shocked.
had this as a loss preseason, too.
So did I. Yikes. Raiders shocked the Ravens 26-23 in overtime. That game felt like it was just the Ravens were toying with them the whole time. Toy. And it got down to, I think the Ravens were up 10 points in the fourth quarter. I'm like, all right, that was fun. Maybe they'll do a backdoor cover for me. They didn't just backdoor cover. They won the game outright in overtime. Notably, our sweet prince, Justin Tucker, you mentioned those 2 50-yard misses this season in the NFL. He was the 2 that's missed them. So, yikes. I don't know. I think, again, this made me feel fantastic coming to the Bengals game.
Yeah, 0-2.
If the Ravens were 2-0, I'm like, ugh, you know what? Whatever. We'll just try to make a wild card. Division's very much still in play. No offense to the Steelers. We'll get to them in a second. They don't count as a team. They don't count.
When can we hot seat this Harbaugh?
No, he's not. No.
Oh, Ravens fans are.
Really?
Really loud. Really loud.
How is it his fault? He hasn't done anything wrong.
When has he won?
He should. What's
What
your
has he
guys'
won lately?
what's your guys' bid about
the
David
most
Bell?
talented
If
roster
you
in
win,
the league.
if you win a Super Bowl, I swear
The
to
most.
God, I'll give you-
Last year they were the most talented roster in the league.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you were talking about this year.
No. They didn't do anything in the playoffs though. That's what I mean. Like they
Okay.
continually have one of the best rosters in the league.
All right.
He hasn't
I
won
would
in over a decade. It's getting loud. It's certainly being
For
brought
what
up.
for what it's worth, when you say most talented roster in the league, that's only because Lamar Jackson is head and shoulders above Brock Purdy, because the 49ers are better at almost every other position group.
ESPN ranked the top 10 tackle duos in the league.
Yeah.
Coming in at 7 was Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz. Colton McKivitz is not a top 35 tackle, but Trent Williams is that much better than the
maybe
next
the best.
guy. That it
Maybe
is.
the best
They
ever.
are still a top 10 duo.
It's something. There's no doubt about it. The Baltimore Ravens. You talked about Justin Tucker and we talked about the kickers and everything like that. I'm sorry I side rail your headlines.
No, it's okay.
I just like going
I like
through
that.
them and like talking about each game.
No, I like
is there a more amazing thing that is developed? I would put maybe pitch speed in the MLB, but kickers and their ability to kick, it's incredible.
Unbelievable.
I remember 15 years ago, 45-yarder, you're sweating. Like if you're sending Mikey Nuggets out there or Shane Graham out there for a 45-yard field goal, you're like, oh man, this is tough. It's a tough. 45's a chip shot now. And now 50 yards, you're like, all right, 50. Like until they get over 55, you're like thinking this is a make.
It's basically if you cross midfield now, they have a legitimate shot.
Yeah.
Like Harrison Butker yesterday, I don't think there was a doubt in any of our minds in here, and probably no doubt in anybody's minds watching at home that was going in. And not only does he make it, he makes it down the middle. Like there was never a doubt. It doesn't curve right to left, left to right. It's not a little hook. It goes straight down the middle, and it clears the post by I don't know 15 yards, middle of the goal.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to me. But yeah, the kicking
guy,
thing. Brandon Aubrey. We don't talk about Brandon Aubrey.
Incredible.
He kicked, I don't know, 4 or 5 field goals yesterday. I don't know how many it was. That guy's legitimately the best kicker I've ever seen.
What about the Texans guy?
Tommy Fairbairn?
That kicked a 59-yarder,
Yeah.
and it would have been good for 5 or 6 yards further?
Yeah. Aubrey made a
20 fantasy points last night for Fairbairn.
Dude, I almost won a fantasy game last week. I lost by 0.2 points, and it was because the 49ers kicker.
Jake Moody.
Jake Moody had like 26.
Yeah.
26 in my league. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
I had
big-
McPherson. He helped pick my
Kicker talent's trickling down to college, too. I mean, we're seeing more deep kicks in college than ever. 40-plus yard kicks in college used to be...
It is. It is.
wouldn't
frustrating
even think
watching-
about it.
The
watching-
University of Cincinnati's found our kicker.
That's right.
He drilled a 55. When I say
was incredible.
I've never seen a kick like that from a UC kicker. Never in my life. It was the second longest field goal in Cincinnati history. I don't know who the other guy was that made his.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But like every kicker that UC has, they'll show like the camera from behind the goal. And they'll kick it. It's some weird squib line drive missile low that barely clears the crossbar. This kid drilled it from 55. He did it twice in that game. 2 insane kicks. So yeah, it's becoming where everybody is just drilling kicks.
It hasn't gotten to high school yet. I can
Well, no.
I get to high school. There's still teams that like they score a touchdown like
We're going to go for 2.
Yeah, we're gonna go for 2. We don't like
It's more
that.
fun that way. Why not be fun about it?
They actually have a rule in high school that it incentivizes you to kick field goals, which is like in the NFL, it's wherever the ball is downed, right?
Yeah.
Where the if they miss. In high school, they go to the 25 if you miss. So you can try a 55-yard field goal if you wanted to. They just get the ball at the 25.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they want it so
fun.
like there's more scoring, and they like because even if you have a kicker that can get it around 50 yards, you will never try it because you're just going to give them great field position.
Yeah.
They moved the extra point back a few years ago to try to make that not a gimme, and I think kickers just took that as an insult and decided to hit the gym and just hit everything from now on. Because that extra point hasn't gotten any less of a gimme, really.
Well,
I mean, obviously, McPherson was one on Sunday.
EMAC misses them sometimes.
Yeah, I actually think the extra points have been missed way more. Actually, I do think that has
I
changed.
feel like you're still over 90%. Probably.
It's still 90%, but
It used to be like,
it used to be
two misses a year.
Yeah, 100%. If you missed an extra point 10 years ago, it's like, what are you doing?
It wasn't as big of a change as they thought it was going to be.
No, I think it was a pretty good change. I have to see
I
the
definitely disagree.
I have to see the numbers on it. The Rams, they get blitzed by the Cardinals.
I like the Rams, but
I like the Rams too. I bet on the Rams. They were the last leg of a parlay. Would have won me a lot of money, and they just died immediately. Every time I checked the box score of that game, I was at a bar watching the Bengals game. Great vibes in there. There was a guy with a cowbell. But anyway, I was watching the Bengals game, so all the Bengals games were on every TV, and I was just checking the box. Every time I checked the box score of this Rams-Cardinals game, Cardinals had the football. Cardinals had the ball. Cardinals just scored. Cardinals had the ball again after they just scored. Cardinals 90-yard touchdown, 80-yard, 50-yard, 60-yard. Doesn't matter how many yard touchdown it is. Marvin Harrison's open down there somewhere, and they found him. They found him all. I think he had 130 yards, 2 touchdowns at the half, and it was just like, ugh. But what nonetheless, Cardinals look pretty good. I think Jacob had them in his preseason top. What was it? We did top 10.
I had him in my playoffs in the NFC.
I stole that pick from him, and it works great for me now.
Are they 2-0?
1-1.
1-1.
But they
Bills had an incredible comeback last week. Like they won that. They dominated that game for most of the game.
It was like 17-0. That's right.
final game.
Wait, you got to talk about Marv.
What do
You
I
can't say
think?
the Cardinals game and not talk about Marv.
I just did.
I don't
Did you
think-
not hear me?
First half only.
First half only. Yeah.
Incredible. 22 miles per hour. Everyone was talking about he couldn't run last
Move
week.
off the Ohio State shit.
Thank you.
Boy,
That's
looks
right.
good.
Thank you. Toilet bowl. This game actually was one of the few games that was on a TV that wasn't a Bengals game. And I every once in a while I'd look at Bo Nix throw a football, and I'd pray to God and I thank Jesus that we have Joe Burrow quarterbacking our team. Broncos beat the Steelers in the toilet bowl 13-6. What the Steelers are 2-0. They are going to absolutely have a winning record this season, and they will suck. They're going to lose. They're going to get to 9 wins and lose out. That's what's going to happen. 9-0, the Steelers, and they will lose out. That is how bad that team is. Offensively, they're nothing. Defensively, they're fine, I guess, when you're playing Bo Nix and the washed corpse of Kirk Cousins. Respectfully, of
The
course.
washed corpse.
I mean, I don't mean to
I
be
haven't
the-
watched Kirk play, but
Well,
everyone says he can't move.
If you look at the game tape last week, he had
Everyone
about
says he can't move.
he
Right?
had about 10 seconds to throw a football, and he legit spiked it into the dirt. So it's listen, good for the Steelers fans. I'm happy for you. I'm truly happy for you. Your quarterback stinks. Your wide receivers stink. Everybody stinks, but you win games. So I guess that's all it takes in the NFL. Just win some games. I think I touched on all the NFL games. I could be wrong. I don't know. Moving on to the Reds one. I put in one Reds nugget here. The Reds lose 9-2 to the Twins. Ooh, they do win the series. Good for them. Rhett Lauder tossed 5 1/3 innings, allowing 6 hits and 3 earned runs. He has a 1.74 ERA and a 1-2 record with a 1 ERA. 2 losses.
I haven't asked this on the show, but I do have a serious question because I was holding on hope for the Cubs making the postseason, and then they lose 2 of 3 to the Rockies. I watched both the losses, didn't watch the win. And they're 5 games. It's done. Does it make you feel better as a Reds fan? Does it give you we talked a lot about solace last year when the Bengals were favored against the Cardinals after losing to the Titans?
Solace, yeah.
Solace.
I forgot about Solace Gate.
Did you does it give you any sort of solace as a Reds fan knowing that it's looking like 88 to 89 wins is what's going to have to get you into the postseason? And more than likely the Reds, that would have been the ceiling, the absolute best that the Reds could have played.
Yes.
You were always shooting for 84 wins, 83 wins and making it in. Does it give you some sort of solace we were probably never going to make it anyways?
Oh, 100%.
1,000,000%.
This season would stink a lot worse if a team made the last wild card spot with 85, 84 wins.
Yeah, it would be brutal.
Because you could talk yourself into the Reds winning 10 more games or something. You can't talk yourself into the Reds winning 90 games this year. And any way you spin it, even without the injuries, I think 90 games was probably the ceiling for this team. I mean, really optimistic takes was that they were going to win 90 games.
I had a guy out in headlines ask me if he gave me the over/under on the Reds season before it happened. He said 95. I was like,
Sorry?
He put the line at 95, and I said I will throw
Any amount.
semblance of money.
Yeah,
But
no,
go on with your thoughts.
it definitely helps, and I think right now this stretch hurts a lot less than last year. Last year being in the mix and falling apart at the end hurt way more. This season is worse as a whole, but this stretch right here, I'm glad that we were at it about a month and a half ago because if it fell apart when you were close, that's as painful as it gets.
I know I bashed this division. It is a terrible division, truly. But the Brewers winning 95, 96 games, whatever they're going to finish
Makes you
this
feel
year,
better too, or
makes me feel great. Makes me feel great.
Yeah.
Because I did think the crux of this issue was going to be everybody right around the 78, 82 win mark, and it would just be a dogfight to see who can be the best bad team. But no, the Brewers are head and shoulders. They're 23 games above 500. It's not even close that they're the best team in that division. Reds will finish 4th yet again in the NL Central.
Oh man.
Very happy the Pirates still suck.
Golly, the Pirates, man. I think, you know what, though? I'm not giving you that one because you conceded. You conceded right around the All-Star break. You said, I was wrong about the Pirates.
No, did I?
Yeah,
you have to clip
conceded.
it. You have to clip it.
You conceded it.
You have to clip it.
And I took that victory.
I know.
You know what's funny is I started keeping tabs. Keeping tabs on all the Craig count, whenever we do the fire David Bell, and the only answer from guys like Kirby and some people in the chat would be about how, look at the Cubs, they go and get Craig Counsell. How's that going? And I wanted them so badly to sneak into the postseason just so I could just start they're still going to probably win more games than they were expected to win. I think their line was 83. They'll be right around there. Also, I was talking with Trace, and I'm now doing a Cubs thing. I was talking with Trace about the Cubs, and he was like, what went wrong with the Cubs? Pete Crow Armstrong suck or something like that? And I was like, if Pete Crow Armstrong played on the Reds, I think he'd have the second highest. I think he'd be their second best position player.
Oh, no.
He's got a 3 WAR.
Oh, no.
And he's like, what about Dansby Swanson? He's got a 3 WAR. What about Nico Horner has a 3? I don't know. I'm just. They just played really bad for 2 months. Just really bad.
Maybe the Reds will be good next year. Love our chances.
This is my favorite part about being a Reds fan is a week and a half from now when all the other teams are doing their little playoff thing and we get to talk about how excited we are for next year because I'm going to be excited for next year.
I don't know if I'm going to be.
Isn't it
I don't know
so
if I'm going to
fun?
get back in.
I'm going to get. I can say that.
I don't know if I'll get back in next year. The year after that is when I'll get back in.
You want to bet that you're not back in on opening day next year?
We'll see.
Because I know you.
They have to sign somebody, right? You have to sign somebody. This offense does not work with the guys we have. It's very evident and clear. Go out and sign Santander, please. If you don't sign a starting pitcher, fine, whatever. Somebody's going to get hurt and we'll lose that way anyway. But nonetheless,
My favorite
go out and go sign somebody. That's not Jamie or Candelario.
Hey, he was a good signing. You guys were excited about him.
Yeah, his OBP, 240.
Jacob just said, that he's really excited when all those other teams are doing their little playoff thing. There's actually one of my favorite pastimes is when we get to the like NLCS and Reds fans sit down, or like as a Cubs fan the last few years, the same way too. You sit down and you watch the NLCS or the ALCS and you see each team's lineup.
Yeah.
And you just go, oh man, we're not close.
We're not close.
We can sit here and go like, oh, we get one more piece. We get a piece here. We get a piece there. And who knows what happened? And then you're seeing Zach Wheeler versus whoever the Dodgers throw out there and their whole lineups, the Phillies and the Dodgers lineups. And you're like, oh man, we weren't even close to being one of these teams. Not even close to being a competitor. By the way, you didn't put it in the headlines, Elliot. You should have. Shohei Ohtani's ramping up to possibly throw in the postseason.
It would make me happier than anything in the world.
I did see that.
That would be if Shohei Ohtani gets a save or a win or just
pitches
in the postseason and the Dodgers win the World Series. As a Shohei Ohtani just lover, because I love baseball and I think he's the greatest baseball player ever. It would make me just so tremendously happy because it would be the greatest baseball season ever. Yeah. And who would he dethrone as the greatest baseball season ever? Himself. Himself last year or himself 2 years ago.
Could you imagine Game 7 of the World Series, top of the 10th? They're out of, let's say, top of the 12th.
Reed and I's entire drive back from Athens was Shohei pitching in the playoffs fan fiction. So we've done this.
They're out of pitchers. Dodgers, there's only one arm left. He hasn't pitched yet the entire postseason, but the doctors just gave him the go-ahead. Shohei comes in for the top of the 12th, strikes out the side. He's up to bat first, bottom half of the 12th.
Bomb.
Walk-off home run.
Now, imagine being a Dodgers fan right now.
Yeah.
On the doorstep of the playoffs, you lose Tyler Glasnow for the year, and you're like, oh, dang. Maybe we'll replace him with Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
Well, come on.
Imagine,
they live a different life than we do.
My favorite is they're going to bring Kershaw out of the bullpen this year, probably.
Yeah.
It'll be a bullpen Kershaw. Imagine playoff
He's
bullpen.
just good from the bullpen.
I'm just trying to imagine a wild card series.
Your long reliever is a top 10 pitcher of all time.
Dude, I'm just trying to imagine a playoff series. Reds Dodgers. Out Waddles out Buck Farmer. And then they have Clayton Kershaw sprinting from the bullpen. It's a different world they live in, and good for them, I guess.
I'm doing the Shohei thing again here. I remember a conversation I had in this studio was that 2 years ago when Judge hit 62, or was that last year? 2 years ago.
2 years.
2 years ago, and Shohei, I think, had like 38 home runs. And like he was batting 300, and he had a 2.5 ERA or something like that, and 210 strikeouts, pitched like 170 innings. And like even though War had said like Judge might have been the better player and everything like that, I was sitting here just like Shohei Ohtani is the greatest thing ever. And I remember people going like, oh, so we're just supposed to give the MVP to Shohei every year? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I told you before Shohei Ohtani got to Major League Baseball that a guy is going to throw 150 strikeouts, have a sub-3 ERA, hit 30 home runs, and bat 280, you would say that guy should win MVP. And he did it. He won his first MVP, and the next year he did it again. And people are like, yeah, but we're kind of tired of the Shohei thing already. It's just crazy. It's crazy. I hope he gets 9 MVPs.
Did it with LeBron.
47 home runs, 48 stolen bases. He'll get there, right?
Oh, I hope. It'd be soul crushing if he didn't at this point.
He's just got to knock off those stolen bases tomorrow. Like
how many home runs does he have?
47.
So like he'll get
right there.
He'll get 50 stolen bases.
Yeah, that's easy.
Because like
the home runs,
because they're already in the postseason. So like literally, if he gets to 50 home runs, then he'll just like literally every time he gets on base, he's
stop it
try.
first.
He's just gonna try.
Yeah.
And he might get thrown out 5 times. I also like how the year that Shohei Ohtani can't pitch, he just like turns out. He's like, oh, I'm going to do something that no one's ever done in this sport before. I'm going to go 50-50.
Was Jonathan India's Rookie of the Year more impressive than Shohei's Rookie of the Year?
Did Shohei get hurt his first year? I don't think he pitched his first year a whole lot.
I don't think he did.
Yeah.
He did a little bit.
He did a little bit.
He threw
towards the end of the year.
He played 104 games.
He could be. I know your opinion on this, but he's Gold Glove outfielder, right?
That's my other thing. Is I like when people
why
like
wouldn't
discredit him.
Yeah.
He's a designated hitter. It's like I think if you throw him out in left field, I think he's a top 10 defensive player too.
Well, why,
and,
Reed?
And people were like, "Why? What evidence do you have about that?" I was like, "I don't know. Everything else he does is the best, a top 10 in the league. Like he's the best. He's a top 10 power hitter. He's a top
pretty
10
sound
contact
take
hitter.
to me.
He's got top 10 speed in the league. Like it's just insane. I just love Shohei Ohtani so much, and I wish people didn't get annoyed that he's just so good. But people do get annoyed that he's so good, and people get old.
I would love. What if he comes to the Reds?
So I've told this story before, but when he lost like $50 million.
Yeah.
Not gambling, but he lost $50 million by coming to the MLB early.
Yeah.
Normally you have to wait until you're a true free agent. You've done 6 years of professional baseball. And he said, like, all right, I'll come when I'm 23 because I want to do something no one's like. That's why Ichiro came over when he was 27. Yu Darvish, all these Japanese players, they come over when they're 27 because they have to play so long in Japan. He came over when he was 23, forfeited $50 million, and just took like the league minimum, rookie contract while he was over here for the first few years. And when he was picking his team, they did it in a very unorthodox way. Their agent was just like leaking where he's not going. So like they wouldn't just go outwardly say like, hey, I'm going to the Angels. He would just like go like, I'm not going to the Athletics. I'm not going to the Twins. And somehow the Reds got forgotten.
Well, hold on. Come on.
So like I was a senior in college when this was happening. I had a sheet. I printed out a sheet of all 30 teams and I started like mixing them off because it happened over like a 2-hour period, 3-hour period. And I was like, all right, not going to the Twins, not going to the Athletics. Oh, he's not going to the Marlins. Oh, no one saw that one coming. Yeah, and he kept going. And then I'm looking at like this final because the Cubs were in contention. The Cubs were like one of the last 6-7 teams, although people really knew he was going to go to Seattle, L.A.,
Cincinnati
or New York. And like the final 6 teams were Seattle, where he was rumored because a lot of Japanese players have gone there. It was the Dodgers and the Angels. It was the Yankees. It was the Cubs.
Yeah.
And it was the Reds. Those were the final 6 teams. And literally the way that they announced that like that the Reds were gone was it was like they forgot. So it was like, oh yeah, we're not going to the Reds. It was a fun time. But all right.
That's it.
That's the show. Guys, had a lot of fun. Tomorrow on the show, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 teams in the NFL. We're going to do that. We're going to have some other segments. I'm going to see if I can line up some guests for this week, some Bengals guys to talk about certain things. We'll see if we
You watched a lot of college football this week, too.
I watched more college football this week than I had the entirety of the year up to this point. We watched a game together.
That's right.
Well, we'll do that on Box Lunch.
Okay.
We're going to do Box Lunch. We'll talk about the little board event. It was a nice board event. But guys, thank you so much for being here today. I had a lot of fun. I know the last 15 minutes we just rambled on and on and on, but we will continue to do that once we get off the radio land for this entire week. I'm happy to be here all week. See you guys tomorrow. This has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Box Lunch coming up soon.
Box Lunch.